Nice! Hey everybody, the video you just clicked on is kind of a reaction thing. It's less so me actually doing stuff and more so just cut out from this last weekend's stream where I watched a video by a buddy of mine called ICECOLDSNAKE. Put the thing on screen now. Here. If it's not here, it's because I got lazy and I didn't edit it in the YouTube video. This is his channel. It'll be linked below. It'll probably be up here somewhere, I assume. I think so. I don't know. I'm kind of like in a weird state of being alive and dead at the exact same time. It doesn't matter. Go ahead, go over there, watch his original video, like it, subscribe to the channel. He makes really, really good stuff if you like kind of Xbox 360 style throwback videos of a bunch of other games. Like he did a video on Lost Planet around the same time I did my Lost Planet 2 video. He's done really good breakdowns on Gears of War 1 and 2 and a bunch of other old school games that you might have heard of or might have even played way back in the day that people kind of forget about now. But they're really good. We watched one on stream. This is the highlights of it. Hope you enjoy. But yeah, go check out his channel, video, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Okay? We good? We clear? You know what to do? You have your orders. Good soldiers follow orders. Something, something. I think that was the whole point of the narrative. There was no underlying subtext in that whatsoever. I'm just rambling. I gotta leave.
Rip and tear.
Okay. I think it's fixed. That might have been really, really loud on stream. Sorry. We're not watching that one, but I didn't even think about that. But let's get into this. Now that I've fixed all the issues on my side. I didn't mean to blast the Doom soundtrack at full volume. I have videos turned up because we're listening to people talk, like Ice, and I can turn it down a little bit. And let me know if it's too low, but no such thing as Doom being too loud. Hell yeah, brother. Exactly. You gotta inject it into your eardrums with a syringe. I'll make sure to lower the volume if I ever need to do an audio test next time. Okay. We've lollygagged for about 15 minutes now. Let's get into the video so we can get this shit over with. Not that I wanted to be over with. I love your videos, Ice.
So a few months back, I made a video about Frontlines, Fuel of War, a game that I never played until I made the video. As a big fan of the old Battlefield games, especially because I spent the entire summer of 2007 playing 1942 and Vietnam, I have a fondness for that style of game. And who didn't love Battlefield 1943 from the Xbox Live Arcade? The real big downside to me from Frontlines was that it was clearly a multiplayer-focused game, and multiplayer games tend to die out at no fault of the player. They don't really have much longevity once the player base dies out. If they had added in bots just like the old Battlefield games that they took inspiration from, then someone like me could still experience what the game had to offer years after their release. In my Frontlines video, I talked about the development history and how the game came to be, and how it failed to find commercial success despite being ahead of its time for large-scale, vehicle-based, modern first-person shooters. People said this was Battlefield 3 before Battlefield 3. Frontlines was developed by Chaos Studios and published by THQ in early 2008, and at the time, THQ was stretching themselves thin by acquiring developers, licensing franchises, and cranking out so many games that it made our head spin. Despite Frontlines being a relative failure, Chaos Studios was seen by THQ leadership as a developer with great potential. So THQ set the team loose on their next project, Homefront. Slated for a 2010 release, the game would be a new IP to compete with the likes of Call of Duty and Battlefield. However, by 2010, THQ was grappling with the consequences of many poor decisions and found themselves needing to bet the house on Homefront's success. For THQ, Homefront needed to become the next great first-person shooter IP.
Your ears still hurt? It's not that loud. Come on. It can't be. Unless they hurt from before. This would be an interesting one. THQ, I'm trying to think of the games that they've made that I know really well. Because if I remember right, like Red Faction, okay, that's where I'm remembering from, Darksiders. Or at least they published Darksiders, and I don't believe they developed it. But Darksiders was and still is one of my favorite games in Saints Row. Smack vs. Raw 2006. If it's like pre-2010, there's a good chance I just didn't play it. I like a lot of like the original 360 Xbox and PS2 games. Red Faction, Tony Hawk. Yeah. Red Faction, at least. I never played Tony Hawk. But like a lot of these older games, like he was talking about Warfighter or whatever, Frontlines. I don't know why I said Warfighter. Frontlines and stuff. There's a Cars game in 09. Yeah. There were so many in the 360 era from like 2005 to like 2011-ish. There were so many bad video game movie tie-ins. There was a Bolt video game, you know? Like they did one for every single movie to ever come out. A lot of Wii games? Okay. But yeah, I remember this being on a good number of games that I played in the 360 era. Maybe just because I played a lot of Saints Row 3 and Darksiders 2. But I remember THQ a lot, and then they kind of just stopped. Lost the TV. Yeah, of course. Of course there is.
IP and turn the awful financial position around. Homefront had a promising premise, a massive marketing budget, and ample ambition. Despite selling well, Homefront failed to meet expectations and was ultimately a financial disaster for the developer and for the publisher. So I can remember the marketing for Homefront, and
Hold on. You can't you can't just hit me with the drums from Halo. That caught me so off guard. I've listened to that soundtrack so much. I'm going to get confused by the music so much in this video.
I especially remember my older brother being very excited for it to come out, but I don't remember ever playing it or if I ever even watched him play it. And thanks to this YouTube channel, I've been on a kick lately of playing Xbox 360 era games that I might have missed out on when they first came out. And I've been really enjoying making these videos to reflect on my experiences while playing the games. So when I spotted a copy of Homefront at my local game store for only $5, I just grabbed it immediately. And when I put up a community poll for my subscribers to pick the next game that I would make a video on, they picked Homefront, and I'm really glad that they did. Homefront is the game that I've probably enjoyed the most playing for my YouTube channel, so much so that I initially went into playing Homefront with the idea that I would make a simple comedic abridged playthrough for the single player, but after I experienced the game and I did a little bit of research as I started writing for this script, I realized that I just had to give it a full retrospective treatment and really dive into a lot of the details about Homefront. It's just a fascinating story to me. I'm not saying the game is a masterpiece or like a hidden gem or anything else like that, and I know that the internet loves nuanced opinions. But from the context of playing this for the first time,
it's either in the eyes of the internet, it's either good or it's absolute dog trash, and there is no in between whatsoever. It's either the best thing that has ever done or it's just not worth your time. It's like you can see this 100% in the Gears of War community. Halo Reach, yeah. I forget what it's called, but it doesn't really matter. You can see this in like the Gears community where people are like, Gears 2, Gears 3, best Gears ever. Gears 4 and 5 don't even exist. And it's like most of the people playing the game still in 2024 are playing Gears 5. So it's like, there's a lot of like really hype, vitriolic opinions on the internet that aren't reflective of reality because people have a really hard time expressing their opinions in 280 characters in an Instagram comment section. So they just say the most basic thing and that just gets regurgitated and rolled over time and time again until you have nothing but black and white left. Even in 2011, the idea of North Korea invading the United States was wild. Yeah. Ghostbusters 2019. Is that the Melissa McCarthy Ghostbusters? I remember, like, I didn't hate it. I thought it was just boring. Like, it wasn't that funny as, like, a comedy movie. But yeah, North Korea, I mean, it's like around the time that, like, they kind of started popping off. I mean, they've been doing a lot of stuff for a while. It is interesting because it's something that war games specifically haven't really done a lot of. I can't think of any that focus on Korea or even China, really, for that matter. Warframe versus Warhammer? I am, yeah. Oh, new chatter. Yogurt Mans. I've been watching a lot of your videos recently. I'm wondering if you had ever played Monster Hunter and would I do a video about it. I have, technically. I've played the introduction to Monster Hunter World, I think. I think it was World. Whatever, like, the most recent that's not the new one is. But probably not. I'm not super big on it. I couldn't get into it. So I don't know why I would necessarily. Battlefield 4 and Red Alert are the only games about China. Yeah. But like when I think about like most of the big ones, like especially like Call of Duty, it's always like Russia. You know, it's either Russia or like the Middle East. When will I make the video? That's going to be not my first, but the schedule I have, it's like the second video of 2025 that I plan on making. So it's going to be a while. It might be like a little over or just about 2 months exactly, but it's coming. I'm doing a lot of research on it because Warframe has so much shit going on, and I don't know fuck all about it. Like, I've played the prologue to Warframe, and that's essentially it. I've heard some crazy shit, but people are very kind of whatever. Hello, Majestic Spider-Man. Welcome to the chat. People are kind of like all over the place on it. So I'm just doing research way ahead of time so I can figure out how I'm going to even approach it as a topic. Black Ops 2 and China as the antagonists. Okay. But yeah, it's always like Afghanistan, China, or Russia. And there's never really like nuance there, you know? Or it's America. And it's like, oh, the monsters were the humans all along. Some Walking Dead shit or something like that. Who do you think wins with the info I have now? I mean, it depends on what you mean by like who. In like Warhammer, like a Space Marine, I'd probably give it to a Warframe from like what little I know about what they do and shit. But Fallout lore is to have Russia be the bad guys. Gun life from a guy that went to Russia and he said, "Don't worry, it's all the Russian mob." Yeah, Russia you can't take very seriously. They're losing a war against a single country that like barely has a lot going on. Like you can't take them that seriously. They're fighting literal dragons right now. But, yeah, Fallout was China, because it's the big red scare. It's just an interesting topic to make something about, because Korea, you don't really see a lot of, I don't think. Outside of those few examples or whatever that we put down in chat, but... Dinosaur. Quarters die and a little bit of China and they end up Black Ops lore.
13 years after its release, in an era where modern microtransaction filled live service games, remakes, remasters, sequels, and free to play.
Hey, hold on. I understand the the complaint about free to play live action slop, but like X-Defiant is a really good game. As somebody who like played a lot of it, like I played a little bit of Black Ops 6 because it's on Game Pass now, and after playing Black Ops 6 and playing X-Defiant is a really good shooter. It's a really fun shooter. I haven't played a whole lot of it anytime recently, but back when it came out like a couple months ago, it was a really good shooter. Overwatch is awful, but like, come on, man, you can't come for X-Defiant just because it has microtransactions. Literally every game under the sun has microtransactions, even the single player ones, which is absolute insanity.
Bop is just shoveled at us with 6 or 7 year gaps between major releases. I gotta say, I really enjoyed my short time with Homefront, and it felt like a breath of fresh air to reset me back to why I love video games. So I don't know how long this video is gonna be, but in this video, we're going to explore how Homefront came into existence and its importance for its developer Chaos Studios and for its...
Maybe it's just me, and I have, like, the... Fair enough. Really mid at best. I mean, it's not, like, going to change your world, but as far as, like, a shooter goes, I had a lot of fun with it. Like, it was a lot better than a lot of other shooters, especially the ones that are out right now. Yeah, the core game is very solid. I had a lot of fun with the gunplay of it. But like, I think the idea that like games now are just trash and you have to like go back to like the 360 era to like find good games, I don't agree with at all. And it might just be the fact that I have like anti-nostalgia glasses. Like I treat everything with like an equal amount of fervence, no matter how old it is or whatever. Like if I review Gears of War 1, I'm going to review it as if I'm playing it now, not, oh, if I was playing this in 2006, I'd probably be impressed, which, sure, maybe. But yeah, 360 games are bad a lot of the time. Like even games that I love, like Gears of War 3, it still kind of holds up. But, X-Defiant feels uninspired and unoriginal. I can kind of agree with that. Like it's kind of just like a mix match of all kind of different Ubisoft stuff, and it doesn't really have an identity. But outside of that, and just looking at like the gameplay, is really fun. At least in my opinion, it is. But like, even a game like Gears 3, which I love, and I still think it's held up pretty decently in 13, close to 14 years now that it's been out. It's not like the best. If I never played Gears as a kid, I wouldn't praise it these days. Exactly. Like Gears I have such a connection to because I did grow up with it. If I played it today, I would not be a Gears of War fan. Games aren't that good anymore, just liars. Yeah, like we had Baldur's Gate 3 last year. You know how good Baldur's Gate is? Or I look at like Space Marine 2 or Helldivers 2, which like has its own issues and everything like that, but it's still a fun game. Or like the God of War games or Elden Ring or all these other basically modern genre defining games. And it's like, what do you mean games aren't good anymore? Like, yeah, if you look at Overwatch, Black Ops, maybe Bob was right. Like, I feel kind of gassy today, but it's like all burp gas. Maybe because I'm chugging a Monster. But like, if you're just looking at Overwatch, Black Ops, maybe X-Defiant, I still like it. Or other like free-to-play type games, sure, gaming is trash compared to, 2012 Black Ops 2 and the vibes and stuff back then. But like gaming as a whole, like, what? I just don't buy into that, because think about all the games that I like really love and really enjoy. There's definitely games from back then that I still enjoy and things that I think are good. Like I'm not saying that all games during the 360 era or from like the last generation are bad. I still love like the Mad Max game, for example. I go back and I play that all the time because I have so much fun with it. But to say that like all games now are just trash, they're awful, it's not worth your time, I'm going to go back and play this thing from 20 years ago. Buster McCaskey. Yeah. And it's like, it's just not true. Companies are trying to create more dime a dozen games. I think kind of it depends on the studio. Like I think for most AAA studios, I think that's true. If you look at your like Blizzard, your Activision, your Xbox, and even PlayStation to a bit, like their studios are really creative and they still make good games, but they're all they're very similar. So I get what people say I get what people mean when they say that like every PlayStation game is just the same, because from a broad view, Horizon, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us, they're all pretty much the same genre. Like they're all kind of doing the same thing, but they're still good. But then you look at some other game studios like Ubisoft, EA, Activision, like they're just doing absolute slop. Even Rockstar. Rockstar is a good company, right? They make good games, once every 8 years. But the stuff they do in the interim, when they're doing like the GTA Online stuff, it's the same fucking slop because it makes the most money. And that's the unfortunate circumstance of where we are when it comes to gaming, is that the worst shit makes the most money. And it's really rare to get stuff that's being pumped out constantly that is also doing really good. And I think Fortnite is one of those rare examples where it's still holding a really massive player base and making a lot of money, even though it's like kind of just rinse and repeat type stuff, You know what I mean? Versus something like Call of Duty where they make the same game every year and it still sells like crazy anyways, which is insane. But it's like there's such a casualized market. And the way I think the best way to describe it is that video games is basically becoming what TV is now, because you look at like the most popular take risks that make profit. Yeah, basically they don't want to take the risk. But like the best way you can describe it is if you look at like TV now, I'm yapping a lot. If you look at TV now and the most popular stuff on TV, it's like one of the most popular TV shows that was airing in the last couple of years or whatever is Young Sheldon, which you ask anyone with half a brain, what the fuck is Young Sheldon and why would you ever watch it? They would tell you don't. Like watch a good show. Like, I don't know, Arcane or something. Right? But like but it's really, really popular among like a wide majority, a big swath of people that are kind of just having their brain turned off and they're just watching something just to watch it. Like the same people who watch like, what are those like random, they have like those random TV shows that's like about a fire department or about like some nurses or something like that. And it's the most lame, boring, stereotypical drama, or reality TV, yeah. And people just eat that shit up because it's just simple, basic, mindless bullshit to cram down your throat. And unfortunately, a lot of people really like those. That's why the MCU movies kind of got off with doing like Ant-Man and the Wasp. Not Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man Quantumania was one of the best performing Marvel movies in the theater because it is this big flashy Marvel thing, even though it is one of their worst movies from like a more cinephile viewpoint, you know? But people just like slop. Unfortunately, that's why like the biggest games in the world are Madden, they're FIFA, they are Call of Duty, you know, these things that are very rinse and repeat. And it's easy to see why, you know? Like, it's just the slop, and as video games get bigger and bigger, now video games are bigger than movies and music combined, the more and more we're going to see the Young Sheldons of the video game space kind of come in and start to be more of a big thing. Our movies didn't start out as a plan, and are only now just expecting another profit. Well, yeah. That's the exact same thing. It's like they became formulaic. Yeah. Yeah. But that's essentially where I come from when it's like, it's not so much that like games are getting worse, like they are, but it's like, it's also like the viewpoint from which you consider worse to be, right? Because in a lot of ways, like Call of Duty now is not technically worse than it was in 2010 or whatever. Like you go back and you play Black Ops 2 and it's very, very kind of, I don't know, you can't play it the same. Like it feels like you can tell that it feels slower. Not because they're woke. Yeah, wokeness has nothing to do with games being bad. Call of Duty has been bad for the last decade and it's not woke whatsoever. But but it's like that they're not technically like worse. Like when you say like worse and they're bad, you'd think like Ride to Hell Retribution, but that's not what it is. It's just like, it's bad, but it's passable bad. So people will sit there and play it anyways and spend $70 on it anyways because it's like passable bad. Like it's bad, but they have nothing else to do and they don't really care. So they're going to do that. And that's kind of why that style of making those kinds of video games have kind of, I wouldn't say taken off, but why they've dominated the market, because it's so simple and it's so casual in that way. Let's get back to the video. I don't even know where that tangent came from.
Publisher THQ. We'll look at the development challenges and the over-the-top marketing campaigns, and then we'll dive into the setting, the story, and the multiplayer details. There is going to be an abridged playthrough of the story campaign in this video so that you get the full picture of what the story campaign really was about. And finally, we'll discuss how Homefront's poor reception and its low sales led to the closure of Chaos Studios and helped to contribute to the financial downfall of one of the largest and most beloved game publishers of the era. But first, let's take it back a bit by answering a few important questions. Who was Chaos Studios? What types of games did they like to make? And how did they end up as the developers that THQ hoped would save their sinking ship? Chaos Studios formed in 2006 after the team's previous studio, Trauma Studios, was acquired by EA Dice in
yeah, Korea's not uniting. But like, you see this? I didn't even know this was a thing. Apparently. So North Korea and South Korea, they have the big no-go zone right down the middle. You know, the DMZ, this like line, this giant border wall of, it's like, you know, however many meters wide to keep them kind of separate and everything like that. And they have speakers set up along the walls. And recently, like in the last couple months or whatever, North Korea has just started playing like really vulgar sounds. Like it'll just be like the sounds of bunnies getting their necks snapped or iron grating on a steel plate or something like that. Like it's just like really, really unnerving shit. You know, like the ending credits to Smile 2 or something like that. And South Korea, in response, just blasts K-pop as loud as possible over the DMZ. And then something about that is just fucking hilarious because it reminds me a little bit of like the Waco siege, if you're familiar. You know, big church, Waco, Texas, kind of a cult thing. FBI kind of shows up, sieges them, and like during one of the nights they were like playing dolphin sounds and like the same thing as like buddies being murdered and stuff over speakers. I imagine them doing that, and then you just hear like that one symphony song from TikTok, don't you want to be a part of my symphony? You know, whatever the fuck that is. Just over the speakers with lights and everything going off. It's like the same vibe that I get from it. And it's just fucking hilarious. They send troops to Russia, their soldiers go AWOL. Yeah. It didn't. North Korea, their soldiers just got addicted to porn, right? When they went to Russia, they just started gooning. Same thing with Manuel Noriega. I don't know who that is. Wasn't he in a Call of Duty campaign? Is that the guy I'm thinking of? Like he was a dictator or something? I should know. I should probably know who that is. Oh, this one. Oh no, let's not do that.
2005, then shut down a year later. And can anybody name a better combo than EA buying up a promising studio and turning it to shit?
Yeah. Dude. I mean, Pandemic or BioWare is kind of like, I really liked Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, but I was never a big Dragon Age person. But like Pandemic, damn. Pandemic was the shit. Not even Battlefront. Battlefront, I'm kind of meh. I don't really like. I played a lot of Battlefront 2 when I was younger on the 360 and stuff. But Lord of the Rings Conquest, man. That game was so much cooler than Battlefront in every single way. Running around the Shire as a Balrog? Are you fucking kidding me? That was so much. It was so fucking cool. Like, that's what I want to see return. Like, I don't give a shit about making another Battlefront game. Give me Lord of the Rings Conquest 2, please. Like, I want that rather than like Gollum or whatever the fuck. Give me Lord of the Rings Conquest. And you know what? While you're at it, throw in the Nemesis system. U.S. troops. Well, how is it torture to play rock and roll? Or was it just like AC/DC, but just the lyrics? It's just that motherfucker screaming. Oh, man.
During their stint as Trauma Studios, the team worked to support Battlefield 2, an amazing opportunity for this team as they had previously made a name for themselves by creating the Desert Combat mod for Battlefield 1942. The mod took the large-scale battle elements of Battlefield 1942 and reskinned them into a Gulf War themed setting. and there weren't very many modern military shooters at the time. After Trauma Studios was closed up by the evil mega corporation Suits, the team took their experience with large-scale, vehicle-based combat to other publishers and found a suitor with THQ, forming Chaos Studios in the process. THQ would become the publishers for the team's first full release game, the previously mentioned Frontlines, Fuel of War, in 2008. Frontlines received mixed reviews when it released, and it was plagued with development issues. One major issue was the difficulty in programming for the PlayStation 3's confusing as all hell cell architecture. Only a few weeks before Frontlines was set to release, Chaos and THQ canceled the PlayStation 3 release. And then the game went on to sell only about 300,000 units in the first 3 months, deeming it a commercial failure. So while Frontlines didn't have the success that Chaos, THQ, or gamers were looking for, THQ saw great potential in Chaos Studios' abilities. Notably, they saw the team's ability to deliver on large-scale multiplayer combat, a competitive advantage in the now exploding online gaming market. At the time, if we wanted to play a large-scale multiplayer shooter on console, our options were Operation Flashpoint, Battlefield Bad Company, and a handful of PC exclusives out there like Battlefield 2 and Arma. The team at Chaos had shown that they could deliver a high-quality, full-fledged game given the resources. They had proven to themselves and to THQ that they could create a narrative-driven setting for an epic multiplayer action shooter. With this experience under their belts, they set off to perfect and showcase their storytelling abilities and improve on their multiplayer formula by incorporating some more modern gameplay mechanics. And thus, Homefront was born. Now, while Homefront was being developed into a game that would showcase the team's capabilities and deliver a much-needed commercial success for Chaos Studios, executives over at THQ were competing in a speedrunning contest to see who could be the fastest to make the company go bankrupt. THQ made its name on games licensed for popular IPs. They released countless games for WWE, SpongeBob, Rocket Power, and too many IPs to count really. But the high licensing costs to use these IPs greatly reduced THQ's profitability. As the licensing costs grew and fan interest began shifting to competitors' original IPs such as Call of Duty, Gears of War, Battlefield, and Halo, THQ's reliance on external IP slowed their progress toward internally developing their own successful IP. In an attempt to catch up and quickly get new IPs off the ground, THQ went on an absolute blitz of acquiring development studios during the mid-2000s. Early on in the decade, Red Faction and later Saints Row developer Volition, MX vs. ATV developer Rainbow Studios, and SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom developer Heavy Iron Studios were all acquired. In 2004, THQ acquired Relic Entertainment. Known for their work on Warhammer 40k Dawn of War, THQ would help them publish their new IP, Company of Heroes. In 2006, Vigil Games was also acquired and tasked with the development of the new Darksiders IP. And the subject of this video, Chaos Studios, was acquired in 2006. This rapid acquisition strategy resulted in multiple IPs under development and spread THQ resources very thin. Rather than adopting a centralized approach like their competitors, THQ allowed each studio to operate independently. Each studio had their own QA, marketing, and game engines. Because they each had their own technology underlying their games, THQ was unable to shift developers between studios or to take advantage of a single training system for new staff. And without a centralized marketing team, marketing campaigns overlap and budgets inflated. All of these reasons drove THQ's operating costs to unsustainable levels. In 2007, THQ's earning reports showed that they had over $1 billion in gross revenues, but they only had $68 million in net profits. It was clear that they needed a homegrown blockbuster. In the run-up to 2009's Red Faction Guerrilla, the open-world reboot for the series, THQ invested heavily into marketing the game. And although reception was good and sales were relatively okay, the number of units that did sell did not meet the necessary return on investment.
Dude, Red Faction Guerrilla, I've never finished it, but I remember getting that game at one point. It might have been like Games of Gold or something, Games with Gold, something like that. But like playing that game, was so much fucking fun. Just like going around like the opening area, getting a bus and crashing it into a building. Red Faction Guerrilla was fantastic. Just fabulous.
For the large marketing budget. THQ would follow this up the next year with another strong marketing push for Vigil Games' first entry in the Darksiders series, but it would meet a similar fate as Red Faction Guerrilla. For the fiscal year of 2009, THQ reported a $431 million net loss, with about 40 million of that amount being expenses related to restructuring, including canceling projects, laying off staff, and shifting resources around. For the fiscal year 2010,
hold on, bro's desk looks like the Amazon. Is that not a fire hazard at some point? How does he have so many fucking plants? Have I read the Darksider comics? No, I haven't even played Darksiders 1. I think I might have tried to, and then like I played it because I started with Darksiders 2, so going back to Darksiders 1 was not a lot of fun. But I've played Darksiders 2 and Darksiders 3, and that's about it. Like I never got like super heavily invested in it, but I really loved Darksiders 2. And it also introduced me to White Light, who's another really good YouTuber. But seriously, man, how do you have so many fucking plants? Are they all fake or are they all real? Because if they're fake, goddamn, how many trips to Hobby Lobby did you make? And if they're real, what the fuck? It's even crazier.
Laying off staff and shifting resources around.
He's got one in the chair.
For the year 2010, THQ would report a profit of only about $500,000. THQ was sinking faster than Ubisoft is sinking in 2024.
Yeah, they're not doing great at all.
With their backs against the wall, THQ threw all that they had at Homefront with the hope that it would become the next great IP and compete alongside Call of Duty and Battlefield in the exploding market for modern military first-person shooters. Homefront was slated for a holiday season 2010 release, and someone over at THQ must have been really feeling themselves if they thought Homefront was going to be able to compete with Black Ops and Bad Company 2. Call of Duty Black Ops sold about 5.5 million copies on its first day, and another 18 million in the next 3 months, while Bad Company was able to sell 12 million in the first 3 months. And that's not even mentioning the other amazing games that were released in the fall of 2010. 2010 was just an incredible year.
You're so right. 2010 was fucking popping. Borderlands, MW2, Left 4 Dead 2, Assassin's Creed 2, Mass Effect 2, there's a lot of 2s. Holy shit.
In the fall of 2010.
Bad Company.
2010 was just an incredible year for gaming. So how did they plan to compete with all those games? Other than delaying Homefront to 2011, which they also did. Well, they didn't learn from their last 2 mistakes, so they decided to throw $50 million into marketing.
Really love Bad Company? Maybe. I remember playing one of them a really, really long time ago, though. I think my dad got them on GameFly, like that long ago. But I don't doubt that I would. I thought, don't they not exist, though? I thought they got like scrapped from online stores or something like that. Or was it just that they got shut down? I don't remember.
Marketing Homefront. THQ was determined to make sure that Homefront was seen by as many eyes as possible. The marketing campaign was heavily driven by Danny Bilson, THQ's executive vice president of global production and marketing. Bilson believed that Homefront would become THQ's next massive hit.
It's our biggest project ever in the history of the company. It's not an invasion game. It's about an occupied country. They control San Francisco.
Bilson also had a lot of contributions for Homefront, but we'll come back to his
a long time ago.
And I just gotta say, I remember their marketing campaigns. I actually thought that they were really cool because they all tied into the setting for the game. Homefront is set in a near future dystopian America where an empowered North Korean army has invaded and now occupies much of the western United States. Living under martial law, American resistance groups are engaging in guerrilla operations to try to fight back against the oppressive Korean rule. All the while, civilians are just scraping by for survival under the harsh and oppressive rule of the occupying forces. For the marketing, they really wanted to immerse potential players into the dystopian world of Homefront. To do so, they created a resistance radio website to listen into broadcasts and news reports from within the game's world. They also created fake news reports and social media posts announcing that North Korea had attacked or declared war on the US. People who didn't understand that these were ads for a game were really confused and started panicking like the world was gonna end. At E3 2010, they had some of the largest billboards on display. They had Korean propaganda-themed food trucks, and they even had a group dressed as Korean soldiers walking the floor of the convention hall. And most famously, they held an
dressed as North Korean troops. I don't think a single one of those guys is Asian, let alone Korean. That's kind of funny. That's such a shitty move. I know it was 2010 and they still didn't even give a shit back then, but like, let's get a random assortment of 40 gangly looking white dudes and dress them up like North Korean soldiers. Who the fuck approved this? What?
As Korean soldiers walking the floor of the convention hall. And most famously, they held an event in San Francisco where they released 10,000 red balloons over the city. The balloons were meant to represent Korean paratroopers descending on the city. And this dumbass idea just pissed off the citizens of San Francisco. And for pretty good reason. I mean, if you didn't know that this was for a game, you just see a bunch of red balloons floating in the summer sky and think, panic bells, red alert, there's something here from somewhere else. And most of those balloons ended up landing in the bay and were environmental hazards for the wildlife. Also, who the fuck thinks releasing balloons is a fun idea? That's the kind of thing you'd expect out of a bunch of arrogant nematode marketers. THQ tried to play the whole thing off by saying that the balloons were biodegradable and perfectly safe. But come on, how many years does it take for something to biodegrade? Until then, it's a hazard. They also had
everything's biodegradable. It just depends on the time frame you're talking about. Because they say forever chemicals, but they're not really forever because eventually the earth will explode. So like, is it really a forever chemical?
Cards that were attached to the balloons to help with marketing the game. So it was basically just organized littering for their own enjoyment. The city later determined that they'd broken some fish and wildlife laws and they were fined $7,000 for the stunt. So while the marketing team was adopting the all press is good press mentality, the team over at Chaos Studios experienced hurdle after hurdle with actually creating the game that they were trying to sell. Team members reported that the production really only took about 14 months of the almost 2 years that they had in development. And just as the studio was starting to ramp up on full production of Homefront, Frank DeLise, the last remaining founder of Trauma and Chaos Studios, departed. His exit in 2010 left a significant gap in leadership and led to a very low morale and instability within the studio. But as the scale of Homefront grew, it began to take on a whole new look. It was no longer an ambitious first-person shooter from a small team at Chaos Studios that had worked on Frontlines. Now it was a large-scale, expansive project with high expectations from THQ. To help make sure that the development went smoothly, the hiring team brought in many senior developers. But these senior developers had more experience than the leadership above them, leading to even more conflict within the team. And the salaries for these more senior industry professionals further inflated the cost of development. As Homefront grew in scale, so did...
Or the sun implodes. That's what I mean. Like, the sun imploding is what would blow up the earth. Like... But yeah, either way. It's not a forever chemical, because forever means, indefinitely, which is not the case. We'll blow up in a few billion years.
Chaos Studios, from around 40 employees in 2008 to almost 180 by the time of release. And the lack of senior leaders to help manage this growth contributed to even more management challenges as the team worked toward their fall 2010 release date. But the staff on the team fluctuated constantly as many staff members could no longer take the awful crunch and overwork culture that had begun to develop at the studio. Some former employees alleged that they were required to work 12-hour days for 6 days a week, and some members of the team did this for 14 months straight. To add on to the already rocky development, Danny Bilson from THQ took on Homefront as his pet project. Bilson, a former Hollywood writer and producer, brought his experience with storytelling, creative production, and marketing to Chaos Studios. Bilson was critical in securing and leading the marketing efforts for Homefront, And many employees reported that Bilson would frequently stand up for Chaos Studios anytime THQ would question their ability to deliver the hit that THQ needed. But not all of Bilson's contributions were seen as helpful for the development of Homefront. Former staff later commented that Bilson's overly hands-on involvement often...
Yeah, I don't know if like the guy, if he was in charge of marketing, so he was the guy in charge of like, let's create a fake Korean army of white guys. Let's make fake immersive things, which by the way, the immersive, whatever you want to call it, like the ads and stuff that like make it seem like it's real. I feel like that only works if it's like also obviously fictional. You know what I mean? Like Halo 3 did that, where it's like these interviews of people who were in a part of the war or whatever. And it's like, it's really cool because it's like, it really humanizes the world and allows you to like grip onto it. Versus something like Homefront, which is supposed to be more realistic. I feel like you can't really go that angle because you end up with exactly like they did, where you convince people, there's a lot of stupid people out there, that it's real. And like the balloons thing, which was like such an awful idea. Like I said, that's just like pre-planned littering. But like, if the guy who's in charge of marketing, who's been doing all this stupid shit, is the guy that's standing up and vouching for you, he might be, you know, like a higher tier producer executive and stuff. But like still, I would look at that guy and I'd be like, didn't you just like release a couple thousand balloons over San Francisco and cost us a $7,000 fine with the city? I don't care. Like, it's hard to like listen to this guy stand up for you and vouch for you when he's going over here and doing some stupid wacky bullshit.
Often led to lots of poorly communicated changes that set the project back. Bilson, being an executive from the filmmaking industry, was very inexperienced with providing feedback on game mechanics and game development, and he would often give vague or non-actionable feedback. After about a year of development, the team's first prototype, which was shown at E3 of 2009, was scrapped after Bilson pressured the team into some drastic changes. Bilson was also incredibly against using China as the main antagonist, as the team had originally intended.
Well, yeah.
Bilson,
well, it's also like Halo 3's ads being realistic doesn't really matter, because if you're listening to like the janitor guy talk about Master Chief fighting aliens, you're like, okay, this is fake. You know, like nobody's going to see that and think, oh my God, we're at war with aliens. You know, like it's so very obviously not real that it humanizes us to the game and its story without going so far as to make people think we're actually being invaded by North Korea, which is just a bad move.
probably correct in thinking this, feared that he and other THQ executives would be banned from entering China if their game cast a negative light on the Chinese government and its military. He also feared that it would harm THQ's abilities to do business in China, the world's largest gaming market. The team would eventually land on casting North Korea in the role after they considered an ambiguous unified alliance of East Asian countries. All of these changes, gaps in leadership, and turnover contributed to production delays and eventually led THQ and Chaos Studios to delay the game into 2011. Announced during THQ's Q2 earnings.
Development is like the biggest issue with a lot of, but like development is the biggest issue for a lot of these different studios. If you even look at like newer games that are like falling apart in that way, like Gears 5 and Halo Infinite, a lot of their biggest issue is that a lot of their senior staff and a lot of leadership roles were either switched over multiple times or even were switched over while the game was live. So like Gears 5 was supposed to have a lot of like really cool, interesting stuff added to it later on. That just never happened because all the people that like had those ideas and wanted to make it happen got canned or they left. And it's like, well, it's hard to like go this route if we don't have the original like leadership that envisioned this in the first place. And it sucks because it happens to so many games becoming a trend. It's less so a trend and it's more so, what do you call it? Like it puts the writing on the wall. Like, if you see a studio that is, like, or a project that's having, like, multiple people turn over and stuff like that, it's not very good. Like, it tells you that it's something is here that is an issue that is more foundational than one or two developers, you know? It's less so like a trend between, like, it's not a trend of all gaming. It's that, like, if there's a game that is bad, it is likely that this also happened. It's, like, not quite there, but still kind of is.
Call. Investors and the public were informed that Homefront would be delayed to March 15th, 2011 to allow for additional polish to meet THQ's high standards. To help build a more believable and engaging story, the team at Chaos Studios brought on John Milius as a story consultant. Known for his novels Red Dawn and Apocalypse Now and their accompanying films, Milius provided input on the themes, tone, and helped to shape the dystopian setting of a foreign power occupying the United States.
Yeah.
Homefront is set in a fictional, near-future world where North Korean leader Kim Jong-un unites North and South Korea. He does so by claiming that it will help reunite Korean families, industries, and economies. The war in the Middle East continues to rage on with no end in sight, and the destruction of many oil wells and pipelines ends up crippling the world's oil supply. Prices at American gas stations rise to over $20 a gallon. And as the global financial crisis spirals, the value of the American dollar plummets and civil unrest breaks out across much of the U.S. In 2017, U.S. forces retreat from their forward positions in East Asian countries, and a year later, the Greater Korean Republic forces Japan to join their federation. In 2022, the United States president orders a freeze on all bank withdrawals as the financial system and civil unrest reach an absolute breaking point. Later that same year, an Asian bird flu epidemic sweeps the nation, killing 6 million Americans. Mexico closes its borders to American refugees. The Korean Federation continues its expansion by annexing the southern Asian countries in 2024. Korea then launches a communication satellite that it claims will help spread a message of peace. But of course, they use it to launch an EMP attack on the United States, crippling the infrastructure and leaving the United States military forces scattered and scrambling. The Korean Federation uses the opportunity to seize Hawaii before then invading San Francisco and eventually the Midwest. Now, Korea occupies the western states and American civilians live under martial law. So I think that the setting and the backstory is incredibly engaging. I know that this is a pretty divisive setup.
$20 a gallon? Thanks, Obama. Yeah. Yeah, we don't solely. I think there are, like, if you want to get really, or whatever, like, our power grid is, like, really well defended against things like that, because there are effectively, that's what solar flares are. They're effectively just a massive EMP. It's a giant burst of electromagnetic energy coming towards the Earth, and we deal with that all the time. I mean, there's obviously a lot of things you have to kind of, like, sweep over and have some, I forget what it's called, but, like, you have to, like, give yourself to it a little bit. Although setting the stage with, like, America was, like, falling apart before that, and then that all happens helps for a story in this capacity. But it is a really cool concept. It is an interesting idea. I'd love to see fucking that was a big one. But, like, what do you call it? I'd like to see more modern military games that aren't just, like, state propaganda. Like Call of Duty completely rewriting the Highway of Death to make it a Russian thing, even though we, thanks Obama, did it, you know? Oh, man.
A lot of people liking it, while others think that it's just far too unbelievable for a nation as small as North Korea to accomplish so many things, especially invading the United States. But it's all about suspension of disbelief. I just happen to be more willing to let the story be told to me than others might be.
I don't know, man. My favorite series are, like, Gears of War and Warhammer. And you have to have so much suspension of disbelief for Warhammer. Otherwise, you're not allowed to understand a single grasp of that setting. Like, not a single grain of sand that is thought would land in Warhammer 40k, ever. It is the most stupid, wacky bullshit all the time. You have to be constantly suspended in disbelief in the theater of the mind. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So when it comes to like other stuff, I don't know. I feel like it's not that hard to get into unless you're looking for like a super serious Breaking Bad-esque story. Even Breaking Bad was pretty goofy a lot of the times.
When the game finally launched on March 15th of 2011, players were able to dive into the campaign and see this world that the developers and marketers were hyping up. But does it live up to the expectations? Let's dive in and see for ourselves. The game starts with us being awoken by Korean People's Army soldiers banging on our door. They bust it down to handcuff us and haul us onto a bus. Apparently, our name is Jacobs, and we are a former pilot for the US military. A woman and her child are also loaded onto the bus. Outside the bus, we can see that the KPA soldiers are rounding up and beating civilians on the street. Another man on the bus says that they're rounding up all the pilots in the area. Out on the street, a man gets shot with his blood splattering onto the window.
I don't know why that made me jump. That got me off guard.
And as we're still absorbing that moment,
oh, it's a really good setting.
The little
That
boy
hurts.
running up to his parents' bodies while screaming incoherently, it just gets me, man. Then we see more civilians being rounded up and scanned in through a checkpoint that's guarded by
That's
a
nice.
sentry turret. Probably the worst part about this whole section is that the other guy won't shut the hell up telling us what is happening. Like, we don't need this dude telling us that these people are being rounded up and sent to labor camps and they're likely just gonna die, or that the bodies disappear quickly and there's likely mass graves around. Like, dude, just shut the hell up and let us grasp the awful carnage that's happening outside that we can
God,
do
why am I
nothing to
yawning so
stop.
much?
Then he says that we gotta stick together when we get to where we're going, but before he can finish his sentence, a truck rams the bus.
Oh, damn. That's intense.
Everyone inside the bus goes rolling all around and snaps their necks, backs, legs, and arms, except for the main character. I guess we get plot armor. And get used to it, this happens so often that the characters actually make a joke about it. Connor tells us to grab a gun, and we meet Rihanna as we exit the bus, and the thing I bet
hold on. So the only companies that North Korea didn't destroy coming to America was Pabst Blue Ribbon and White Castle. Which is probably the worst option for beer and the worst option for burgers, which tells me that this is canon. It's great.
most people remember from Homefront is right here, right off the bat, right as you get control of your character. Product placement is everywhere.
So, like, this is like, this is not something I care about. So, yeah. Like, product placement in stuff like video games and movies and stuff, I get that it can be kind of egregious, especially when it's like The Rock holding a can of Pepsi with the logo facing out or something, some bullshit like that. But if we look up, like let's just look up a photo of a street in America. Okay, these are bad examples. I mean, like a Midwestern street, like an actual street, not a fucking whatever the hell this is. Damn, these are all like the pretty parts of America. I want to see just average America. Can you? It's showing me all like the old school downtown spots. But, I mean, this sort of same idea. Like, set up punishment. Yeah. Man of Steel is the problem? I didn't know that. I haven't watched Man of Steel in a very long time. But it's like, you go anywhere in America. These are like, just like basic ass. I wonder if they don't have any signs in them specifically for the photos. But like, oh, look, there's the most famous street in America, which is, a fucking advertisement. You go anywhere. Like, if I go down the street to my Walmart, you know how many different signs for different restaurants and McDonald's and White Castle and Whataburger you see? Like, you see them everywhere. Right there. Like this kind of a street, you know? Like you got so many different billboards and signs and bullshit. Every single fucking place in America looks like this. You know, where you got like a McDonald's, you got a Walmart, you got a Home Depot, you got a Lowe's, you got a Bed Bath & Beyond. Like, even in a game like this, which I get is supposed to be a bit more fantastical and stuff like that, it's not like quite like GTA or whatever, it doesn't really catch me off guard. Like, it's kind of funny, you know, because White Castle is so bad. Cyberpunk, yeah. I mean, Cyberpunk is different because it is like a totally fictional world that's like 100 years in the future, 50 years in the future. But like, so they do have to make their own ads that fit in the Cyberpunk. Like if you saw this White Castle in Cyberpunk, it would feel very out of place unless it was like way out in the outskirts, you know, like kind of in the desert strip mall. Yeah, exactly. Like, but in a game like this, which is representing like a kind of modern America, it doesn't bother me at all. Like people complain about like, the first Transformers movie having a lot of product placement, like when you have like the Xbox that turns into a Decepticon. But for me, it's like, I don't know, like it doesn't like, or they complain that like the Autobots in the Transformers movies have like the logos in the car. And it's like, when was the last time you saw a car that didn't have the logo plastered on the front and the back? And even the side, maybe, if it's a Ford, you know, like, everything, you look around at like your room, like at my desk, if I look at my desk, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 logos, because every single thing at my desk has the logo written on it, you know? Like, I don't think there's a single thing in America, especially, that only White Castles, yeah, that would be dystopian, but like, everything has a logo on it, and it's more distracting sometimes when they don't have the logo. Like when it's egregious, sure, whatever. But like just the fact it's there, I don't really give a shit because that's just how life is. The devs from Modern Warfare 2 want to use Burger King. Oh, were they told no by Activision though, or were they told no by Burger King? Ramirez, protect Burger Town. Can you imagine how that clip would go so much harder if it was Burger King? Ramirez, protect the Burger King. Dude, that would be so much aura for Burger King. You know, if they got, wasn't that Keith David? If they got Keith David saying Burger King, that clip would be going so hard right now. Like, Burger King is so in the shitter, and I don't know a single person that eats Burger King that isn't a drug addict, that like, especially in like the age now, I mean, obviously they didn't know about it, but like in the age of today, with, if a car doesn't have any insignia, it's 99 is an undercover cop, probably. But like, in like today's age of TikTok and everything, a clip from Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2, one of the most famous games evers, one of the most famous games of all time, having Keith David, of all people, go, Ramirez, protect the Burger King. That would go so hard. Oh man, they missed out on that one. They really did.
You guys kept talking about White Castle last night so much, it made me start to crave it too.
So we head through the White Castle to escape the KPA, and we get the first instance where the game puts a door in your way and you have to wait for the NPCs to open it. Yeah. After battling through some KPA troops, every player realizes at this moment that, yep, this is just a Call of Duty clone. Oh well, right? Aside from Makarov shooting up the airport, Call of Duty has never taken the creative risks that Homefront has already shown in the first 4 minutes of its story, so let's just give it a shot. We come into this building and even more product placement.
It's like people only do things because they get paid.
Yeah.
It's just really sad.
This is probably going to be my biggest complaint with this. And it's like, ICE, if you're out there, if you're watching this, I just don't agree whatsoever. Mainly because, like, look around you, you know? Like, there's products everywhere. If it's like, I get the sentiment of like, well, I don't want to be like reminded of it every 5 seconds, but it's like, I don't know, how susceptible are you to advertising? Like, I walk around in public often and I see ads often, but I don't like go out and like fervently buy everything. What's stopping them? Well, also true. like the main thing stopping you from that kind of thing is like suspension of disbelief. It's like you look like the UFC games, like the UFC games or the Madden games that don't have the ads on like the sides of the stadium or on the floor mat in the fighting ring. Those look off because you're so used to seeing the fighting ring with the ads, like the Monster Energy logo dead center, that when you see it without them, it just doesn't look right, you know? So it's like sometimes, I don't know. I get that it's not really important, but like, I mean, you were just talking about how they're having so much financial trouble and stuff. It doesn't really like hurt anything, and they get paid for it. I don't know why they wouldn't do it, you know? It feels like a free bag.
This time, it's for Full Throttle energy drinks, and this really took me back. I used to drink a Full Throttle like every other day when I was in high school. As we hold out in the gas station, a transport shows up that we blow up and it destroys the gas pumps. Then we make our way into the suburbs and we head into a treehouse to provide some cover for Connor and Rihanna as they head over the fence. A rocket gets fired at the treehouse and our plot armor saves us as we fall down. So we fight the KPA troops among the wreckage of this crashed plane. And this is where I think that the world design is pretty great. The sight of a crashed airliner in the middle of an American suburb is a great emotional framing to get you invested. Making our way through the town, we get not one, not two, but 3 moments of waiting for the NPCs to kick open doors within 30 seconds of each other. Then we arrive at the civilian neighborhood, and the team argues over whether we should have.
I guess, but I mean, they're just loading screens. That's another one that's like a weird, because it's like, are we going to go through Gears of War and criticize every single time they make you walk at a mile per hour while they hold their hand to their ear? Like, it's just, you know, the game trying to load without you making you sit on a literal loading screen. It's a horrible thing. I might check it out. I don't know. Not a big movie guy.
Into the neighborhood and disturb the civilians' peace. The leader of the group, Boone, explains that the plan is to steal some fuel from the KPA and deliver it to the US Army gathering in San Francisco, and they need us to pilot something for the plan. A KPA APC rolls down the street and starts gunning down the civilians. We make our way inside the nearby house, but not before Boone has to kick open a door. A mother carrying her baby takes cover inside the house, and as we fight off the enemies, the baby crying rings out louder than the gunfire.
It's good emotional
storytelling.
storytelling.
That's how this works, but since I've just only recently survived the newborn phase, I gotta say this was pretty unsettling. They didn't go far enough as to have the mom and baby die. In some interviews, the developers tried to play this off by saying that the KPA was more focused on taking out the resistance members and not worried about the mother and child. Oh, whatever. The brutality and collateral damage of this war on civilians on American soil has already been set up and established without the need to kill a mother and her child. So you run into this house, escorting the mother and child, and Rihanna kicks open another door. We meet up with Hopper, who gives us a targeting
He's really
system
invested
for this
in the door
crazy
thing.
drone named Goliath. So we take the targeter and we target these enemies, and the drone fires rockets to blow them up. We do that a few more times to destroy all the Humvees, and then the KPA retreats. But a jet flies overhead and bombs the streets.
That's not a jet,
Between
that's a
missions,
predator.
we hear a pirate radio broadcast from the Voice of Freedom explaining to the nation what just happened.
KPA authorities raided the town of Montrose, Colorado. Their goal, in the words of the enemy, was to neutralize high-value citizen targets. But this was not a measured response to American insurgency. This was innocent blood running red on Main Street. Your families and friends shot down like animals. One of the Montrose resistance cells reportedly escaped after a brutal firefight in a nearby neighborhood. We can only hope that these freedom fighters made it to one of their safe zones somewhere in a sea of abandoned suburbs. But whatever their fate, we will fight on. Don't believe the lies of the Korean-controlled media. We are the channel of truth, and this is the Voice of Freedom.
Then we wake up in a bunk bed in the resistance settlement. Boone shows us around the settlement, and we see that they've created their own little safe haven that apparently the KPA can't find from above. They've called this the Oasis. On a wall in one of the back rooms, there's a QR code. I tried to scan it, but it didn't do anything. It turns out that these were part of a transmedia marketing campaign. There are several of these QR codes throughout the game, and scanning them takes you to a website to download wallpapers and had a video explaining the Asian bird flu pandemic. Unfortunately, the websites for these are all long gone. It's really funny looking back on these now because back in 2011, QR codes were just starting to pop up. And if you think about it, not many people even had smartphones in 2011, let alone an app to scan QR codes. It's not like today where everyone has a smartphone and every phone's native camera app is all you need to scan a QR code, and QR codes are ubiquitous. Browsing GameFAQs, you can still find comments from people asking what the hell these black squares are. Boone shows off the rest of the oasis, and we see some creepy ass children playing. There's just something off about the scaling on this kid. We exit.
that face. Look at that fucking child. This is gonna sound weird. Hey, Snake. Yeah, we're watching your video. This might sound weird, but that kid looks like Donkey Kong in human form. You know what I mean? Like, he's got the same eye structure. Like, hey, yeah. I said we would. I tagged you. You might not have seen that. I tagged you at a thing on the general in Discord. Said we were going to watch your video. But so far, it's not bad. Having a lot of fun with this. I mean, outside the fact I just got done on like a 20-minute tirade talking about how I don't think the product placement thing is as big of an issue, or like the door kicking, but other than that, having a good time with this. Before we start talking about trans people in Warhammer, I figured we'd do something fun.
The settlement through a tunnel on our way to a local school to collect a delivery of mortar rounds for the planned raid for the night. We meet up with Hopper and we make our way through a house. Is this joke getting old yet? Because we're just getting started.
Unfortunately,
the sentry gun is guarding the road. We got to sneak.
I mean, it is definitely like a weird detail to pick out. I'm coming around on it because you've done it so many fucking times. Oh, man.
Past it and throw a grenade behind it to blow it up. Boone leads the way as we run to cover. So we make our way to the backside of it and we blow it up with a grenade. Then we head through another house. The KPA come after us, so we wipe them out and then we head through the door. We make our way to the school and discover that instead of mortar rounds, Connor secured white phosphorus rounds. And they're definitely...
We're just getting started. Yeah. I was kind of like, what is the point of this critique? And it's like, oh, we're just going to number every single one of them. I mean, and like another thing about like rewatching it, Ice. I mean, well, the VOD is saved on YouTube, but I don't know. I'll ask you now if you're in chat. Do you mind if I cut this out and I turn it into a proper YouTube video? I don't know how you are with your video. Reacting on stream and like turning it into a separate YouTube video is a different thing. I was playing around with the cord on my microphone and I accidentally unplugged it. Professional content creator here, guys. I know what I'm about. I know. God, I'm fucking off one today. I like hadn't slept in 2 days until today. So I'm kind of, I'm still like in a brain fog. I don't think I've recovered from it. Oh, man. Do what you want. Okay. I mean, obviously not just going to like rip it one for one. Not that I really do. We've been sitting here for over an hour now and we're only 28 minutes into the video, but not so fond feelings on Spec Ops: The Line. Like as in you don't like it, or... I really like Spec Ops: The Line. It's been a long time since I've played it, and it probably hasn't aged super great shooting-wise, but as far as like the story and everything, I remember really, really liking it.
Gonna regret inviting a comparison to Spec Ops: The Line. We also discover Boone took a bullet from the sentry gun that was outside while crossing over to cover. Rihanna takes Boone back to the settlement, but first he hands Connor his badge.
Those subtitles are
find
odd.
Our contact at the labor camp. We make our way through the school and we find this wall full of guns.
Time to make all those popular kids pay for ignoring me.
Then we're out in the streets fighting the KPA, but there's a sentry turret blocking our way.
You did a... You dropped a literal Family Guy cutaway. Keeping all the door kicks. It's not even all of them? Damn. Well, like, my assumption is that it's just loading screens. Like I was talking about this earlier. It's like the same thing as if you point out every single time in Gears of War that they make you walk super slow and do like the talking on the phone thing. I feel like there'd be a lot of those as well, at least until Gears 4-ish. I think they stopped doing it around there. But yeah, I can imagine there's a lot of them. It's an old ass game. They got to they got to allow for some loading time somewhere.
This way! There's an alley behind this house! We can get around through the backyard! Second floor window!
Then we make our way upstairs inside.
I would say even like the UI and stuff, it does just look like Modern Warfare. So like as far as being a Call of Duty clone, like it is literally a Call of Duty clone. I mean, the story is more inventive and stuff. I don't know how it plays necessarily compared to Modern Warfare or Black Ops, and how it's just very distracting. That's fair. But like I don't know how it plays exactly compared to like Modern Warfare, like how it feels, but you could tell just by looking at a screenshot. If you put a screenshot of this next to a screenshot of Modern Warfare and you asked people to guess which is which, the main character is Max Payne. But like if you took a screenshot of like this in Homefront and put it next to Modern Warfare, I don't think many people could tell you the difference unless they'd like played both of them recently and had like a really good understanding of like what exactly all the small details are going on. But it's like using the same fonts and the same compass and the same ammo counter and stuff. Like it's just, you could tell that they copied someone else's homework.
The sentry turret and destroy it with another grenade. Then we make our way to another tunnel that leads into the camp.
Let's ditch the rifles. We need to keep a low profile.
We start asking around the camp so we can find this guy named Arnie, and there's another QR code on this wall of missing persons.
What do you want?
You know, you should desolder the capacitors first.
Isn't it bad enough I gotta scrape these for my food rations?
Sorry, I'm only trying to help.
Welcome to the Korean vision of America, Jacobs. That look like recovery to you?
Oh yeah.
I'm looking for a guy named Arnie.
Fuck you. Never heard of him. Cut the shit. Show him this, tell him Boone sent us.
Hey, Connor, relax. Where's Boone? And who's the new guy?
Plan changed.
So we meet up with Arnie, and he's going to take us to the tracking devices we need.
Don't worry about it. I took care of it. It's what an inside man's for, right?
But first, we gotta wait for everyone to go through the fucking turnstile.
Okay, yeah. This would be annoying. One at a time, guys.
And once we're through,
Nobody move! It's a trap!
then suddenly it goes slow-mo and the three of us kill off Arnie and 4 guards before any of them can pull a trigger. I wonder where they got the inspiration for this.
Damn, yeah. That's just ripped from Modern Warfare.
After fighting through the KPA forces, we find the beacons, then head to cut through the baseball fields to catch up to the fuel tankers and attach the trackers. Connor finally tells us that our part in all of this is to pilot a helicopter to chase down the fuel tankers after they leave. As we make our way into the baseball fields, we discover that the KPA are dumping bodies into mass graves.
Damn.
Pit like garbage. How many people are in this ditch? You sons of bitches. Scumbag motherfuckers.
You motherfuckers! You think you can just throw us in a goddamn ditch? Sentries, stay behind the bleachers! Country, Connor's lost it, man. We gotta take out those sentries. I'll burn you, you sons of bitches!
Connor loses his shit and goes on a rampage. Then we make our way around the baseball.
I feel like that's really well done. In the they race swapped. DI done it again. They race swapped Boone. Oh, fun. I really like that scene. I thought that was really well done. Especially you kind of like see it unfold in game. That's really cool. I might actually. Is it on the digital marketplace? Because I might pick it up and play it myself. You know what? This has convinced me. You know, somebody THQ write ICE a check because he's successfully sold a singular copy of Homefront to Buster McDonald. The emotion of the game, yeah, like that first you like drew attention to it, but like the kid watching his parents get, it's not backwards compatible. That's fucking gay. But like that scene at the beginning of the kid watching his like parents get shot, I was like, damn, that sucks. It was really well done.
Field to destroy the sentry guns. And while investigating the mass graves, a KPA helicopter shows up. Connor orders us to climb into the mass grave to hide. This scene is so disgusting, and I feel like it's actually pretty gripping. So far, this game is just really hitting home when I think that these are American citizens that these atrocities are being committed against. They really made me feel angry and want to take down the KPA.
I feel like this game is doing what Far Cry 5 wanted to do. Like Far Cry 5 tried to do the same thing of like, oh, it's atrocities, but it's also in American soil. But it's like the cult in Far Cry is like so cartoonishly evil. And the fact that like all of their members aren't even like, they're not even like cult members. They're just like brainwashed soldiers. It like a lot of that gravitas is lost versus this is just like straight up. It's like, it's there because there's not like a lot of attention being brought to it, at least as far as I could tell through this retelling of it. And it just sort of like blends into becoming a part of the world and the stage that it sets. And it's really, really interesting to like put your boots into. Redneck the Cult, kind of, yeah. It's really, really bland.
Slightly better job of this than any other military shooters at the time. The KPA shows up and figures we're hiding in the grave, so they shoot indiscriminately, but somehow they don't hit any of us.
Hugging it.
Just burn it. Frontlines is a... It isn't. Bought Homefront IP rights but didn't get the source code. Maybe. I don't know what the process of making games backwards compatible on, like, from the 360 to the series even is. Because as far as I know, it's not necessarily backwards compatible. You just run, like, an Xbox emulator on the Series S, and then that's how they get it through. But I have no idea. I don't know the complexities of how that shit works. I'm just talking out of my ass.
These photos came to me by way of a friend with contacts deep in the Resistance.
Lost track of what I said and it wasn't the script. Oh. Bullets are singular? That's what I'm saying. Like, throw some Molotovs in there. That's how you get rid of all the bodies, you know?
I think we all suspected. No, we knew that atrocities like this were happening, but the proof was so horrifying it's almost surreal. We should be thankful for this evidence. It reveals an enemy that wants to dehumanize us by pushing American corpses into an unmarked ditch can't bury our defiance. Dirt and gravel fill silent mouths. We'll speak for them and tell their stories to the world. The dead have names as long as we fight in their memory. This land will be our land again. Even now, the Resistance is planning attacks that could lead to victory in one of our greatest cities.
It's giving me very Metro vibes, in a way.
So now we're headed off on a nighttime raid mission. The plan is for us to get set up with a sniper on Overwatch while Hopper sets up the mortar on a flank and Connor crashes the main gate. We're told not to open fire until Connor gives the signal. So we head up to the roof and Rihanna stealth kills this guy. Then we make our way into position on the roof. The van crashes.
How does Homefront compare to Wolfenstein? It's not quite the same. Like, Wolfenstein doesn't have anything to do with Metro. Oh, Metro is great. I mean, I've only played Exodus, but like as far as like the atmosphere of like people just sort of like living their lives, but also living in like kind of a dystopian wasteland, it's like it gives me those kind of vibes. Because a lot of like the in-between missions, you're like the main protagonist I'm gonna get it so fucking wrong because it's a Russian name. Fuck, what is it? It's Artyom. Artyom is like a silent protagonist throughout the games, but in between levels, you hear him like reading from his journal and stuff, which like brings a human element to it. And like specifically like that Voice of Freedom broadcast, like that's what it reminds me of. Yeah. And then comparing it to Wolfenstein, I don't know. Like it's got the same regime takeover and you're part of the... I mean, it's basically the same thing. I feel like Wolfenstein, the first reboot, the New Order, is more of that vibe. Because New Colossus is more kind of like... It's more out there. Like, it's kind of whack job. I think the story, the plot line of BJ and his father and everything like that is more along those lines. But the game as a whole... It becomes a lot more not space Nazi type stuff. It like leans into the fantasy a bit more versus the first game is still somewhat grounded. Like when you like one of the first scenes is like the Nazis come in and they're just like executing everyone at like this. You're at like a facility for mentally disabled people and they come in and they just start executing everyone. And it is very much the same kind of vibes. I don't know if it's if I would call it like as gritty as Homefront like portrays itself though. It like because like Wolfenstein very much knows an Asylum. Yeah. Wolfenstein knows that it's a game about sci-fi Nazis, you know, like it does play itself very tongue in cheek at times. Like there are some really insane scenes. Like there's the scene with the concentration camp where like as you're coming out of the train, some lady like holds up her baby and the Nazi commander grabs the infant by their ankle and like throws them or something. And like there is a lot of grim scenes like that are like really like, oh my fucking God, like what is happening? You know, but it's not so consistently grimdark in a lot of ways. It's very like, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like a LSD with Bob. That too. But like a more casual Warhammer thing where it's like it's grimdark and if you're paying attention there's a lot of fucked up stuff going on, but also it's, you know, you're fighting demons. So it's like you can't take it too seriously. Versus from what I've seen of Homefront, it takes itself extremely seriously. Outside of, you know, the fact that it's a video game.
Crashes the gate, and as the soldiers investigate, Hopper lights them up with the white phosphorus mortar.
Nuts.
Oh my God.
Everybody loved white phosphorus.
Hopper is supposed to fire a second round, but it jams. So Connor gives us the order and we start shooting. Then the mortar misfires and it flies right at us. And even though it explodes right over our head, it doesn't set us alight and instead we just fall from the roof. So we get up and we make our way across the lot as per.
This is a great example of two things that happen in two different stories, but one does it to a much better extent. Warhammer 40k. Yeah, kind of. But like, if you look at like these two different games that do the same thing and they're trying to do the same emotional through line, it's that Spec Ops The Line, which we just talked about, had a very similar scene where you fire white phosphorus at the enemy and characters have a dilemma. They're like, this thing fucking sucks. We're like committing war crimes using this, but like we don't really have another option. We're just going to use it anyways. In Homefront with this, it's kind of like, I don't really give a shit. Like we just went through a scene of them pouring bodies into a mass grave and indiscriminately killing people and killing children and shooting parents in front of their children type of stuff that have kind of dehumanized the enemy force so much. Oh, is there something else coming up? Okay, maybe. But like just from like the top. Never mind. Hold on. My whole analogy is gonna fall apart if there's a twist.
Burning enemies and allies come.
Is it doing the Spec Ops thing? Is that a Wilhelm scream?
I did not add in that Wilhelm scream. That is actually in the game. I'm not even kidding. After regrouping with Connor in the tower, a helicopter shows up and blows up the tower, and we fall again.
Oh, okay. So never mind. Yeah. So, like, the biggest difference is that in this game, you're using white phosphorus and they're going, oh my god, just put them out of their misery. But it's also like, these are like inhuman like dick bags. Like, they're so almost like cartoonishly evil that it's like, I don't really care, you know? It's like when people talk about like you nuke the Locust in Gears of War and stuff, and it's like, yeah, they also torture people like by hooking their skin up on chains. But like in Spec Ops, when you do it, you're not only shooting, yeah, but like you're not only shooting enemy soldiers that have like betrayed you, but like you go in there and you find out that like, because when you're looking at it on the screen, because you're looking at it like from like a thermal radar view or whatever, from like a drone view, like the AC-130 stuff. When you're doing it in Spec Ops The Line, it's just a bunch of white blobs. And you're programmed in your brain. It's a military shooter. There's white blobs on a thermal screen. Shoot the white blobs. And then you go in there on foot. And it's... I mean, they're also American soldiers, but less so than that. There's a whole section of civilians who were huddling for their lives. And you just sent them all to a literal mass grave, burning them all alive. Men, women, and children. And that was you doing it. Damn. There's no like villain characters to get attached to. But basically the main difference between the white phosphorus being a bad thing in Homefront and Spec Ops The Line is that in Spec Ops The Line, the game explicitly shows us how bad it is, how bad the horrors of war can be. Like, it's literally telling us dead front in your face that the only people, there are no, like, you know, there's no winners in war. There's only losers, and the losers are the innocent civilians literally cowering for their lives. Versus Homefront, you get the white phosphorus scene, and you're just blowing up people who have been indiscriminately killing whoever for whatever reason from the beginning of the game. So there's not, you can't play that same moral dilemma. My fucking, my speech is all over the place today. It is broken. Oh God, it's not even midnight yet. But like the moral dilemma of the same type of scene in these two games works way better for one than it is for this other one. Because the other one, it's like it's bad, like it's fucked up, I guess, you know? It's like it's like if you were watching Doom guy rip a demon in half, you're like, oh man, that was really like over the top. Like, did you have to rip him in half? And it's like, well, the demon just got done like butt raping a corgi while lighting a school on fire. So it's like, what do you want me to do? You want me to cry over that? No, like that's not, you have not given me a single scrap of a reason to have sympathy for this other faction that you're now burning alive. Like, I don't really care, you know? Versus Spec Ops The Line, it explicitly shows us why that was a bad thing and the, you know, atrocity that such a weapon really is. And that's kind of like, it definitely works for one other than the others. The Tyranids. Yeah, you can't feel bad for Tyranids. They're literally just, like, you can feel bad in, like, some, like, veganism type way, where it's like they're just animals just doing their things. Like, when you have a tiger kill somebody, it's like, the tiger didn't do it because has some vendetta. It did it because that's what tigers do. They kill things and then they eat them. You know, the same thing goes for Tyranids. Like, they're not going like, I'm going to rip this guy in half and eat his heart out. No, they live to kill and eat things. You can't really be mad at them for that. But it works. The white phosphorus thing works really, really well in one game and not in the other, because one game knows how to use emotional levers against the audience versus the other game doesn't set it up at all, but kind of expects you to care because you know that it should be bad. But it doesn't work for the stage that they have set up so far.
shows up and the enemy has some EMP rocket launchers that are on the roof that we have to take out to defend it. Also, you might notice that the sign on the store says tigerdirect.com, a now defunct computer hardware retailer. In the game's trailers, we can see that this was originally supposed to be lumber liquidators, but I have a feeling that they didn't like what was going to happen to their store. Using Goliath, we target the helicopter and shoot it out of the sky. It ends up crashing into the Tiger Direct store, so we follow Goliath and those are words I never expected to hear.
See? Imagine if Modern Warfare 2, we got Ramirez, protect the Burger King. Like, that is the exact same energy that we could have gotten out of Modern Warfare. And you know what? You could say that, like, product placement is bad or whatever. Enemies in the Hooters is fucking amazing. And I'm on board with it.
In a first-person shooter. After killing the enemies in the...
Like, yeah, it would be weird if you were, like, playing, like, Gears of War and it was Marcus and Dom and it was like, Dom, Dom, they're in that JC Penney's, you know? Like, it wouldn't fit there. But in a game like Homefront, White Castle or Hooters, they fit into the setting. And it's kind of just funny that they're there, you know?
Hooters, we make our way to the back of the store, passing a NOS energy vending machine.
Nice.
We fight through the store until we reach this door that's at the top of this ramp.
There was a Home Depot reference. I forgot about that, but it was an Easter egg. It makes it super grounded while taking away seriousness. I mean, yeah, it takes you out of it a little bit, but I think it takes you out of it because so many things are adverse to product placement in that way. But it's like, if there was an actual war going on here in the streets of suburban America, how many, like, you would have to use businesses as call-outs, because, like, when you're looking around for landmarks, it's like, well, what do you see? Do you see it's the building with the red roof? Or do you go, it's the building next to the big fuck-ass tall 60-foot Home Depot sign? You know, you're going to go, like, Ramirez, they're at the Home Depot, you know? Like, that's how it would work. I think we just don't expect it because we are so adverse to this concept of product placement for some like, I still don't really understand it. Like, well, yeah, Gears is like a totally fictional thing, you know? Zeus, give me my PlayStation, you know? Like, it wouldn't fit. In some settings, obviously, it doesn't work at all. But, like, if you're doing like a modern, it's supposedly semi-modern America in the exact same world that we're supposed to inhabit, yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, exactly. Like, I understand that it, like, definitely takes you out of it. Like the Monster Energy cans in Death Stranding, like, that one is one that would definitely remove all urgency. But I don't know. It's kind of funny. And I think for a game like this, the funniest thing being one of the characters calling out Hooters is definitely oh, I think it's like levity that is also needed for this kind of game. Worst. Well, yeah, maybe, because it's not really a game that needs it. Dom, get the fuck out of the chili. And then he drives into a gas station. Yeah. But I don't know. It is funny. Oh man, it's such a I just love it. I don't know. Like, it does take you out of it. But I don't know. I think like it takes you out of it, but like, as long as it's not also happening at the same time, because if you're just in the middle of like the firefight or whatever, and there's like a vending machine over here or a Hooters, you know, off in the distance, and the characters like call it out, whatever, sure. If you were like in the middle of like that scene in like the mass grave, and the Colonel dude or whatever comes up and he like pops open a Modelo and he goes, "Hey guys, I love this Modelo drink," and he starts drinking it, like, it would be like, okay, calm the fuck down, you know? But it just being like a building that exists on the street, the context of it also helps keep it grounded in tone while also allowing it to, you know, exist. Yeah, something like that.
Then Rihanna yells out that we need to meet at the top of the ramp, and we have to wait for them to kick down another door.
Well, you gotta. Okay, that one's annoying.
The vehicle depot's on the other side of this door. We'll create a diversion. You have to tag one of the tankers before it leaves the lot. We can't fuck this up.
I know why they're doing it, but it is annoying.
On the other side of the door are the tankers, but they are already moving, so we haul ass to reach them to place the tracker. And we run and barely reach the last one to plant the tracker. I then ended up turning around and running back the way I came, which was the wrong direction. And the whole time, Rihanna and Connor are just chattering.
Jacob, meet us at the back of the store. Finish him off, Jacob!
Flank these assholes. We're moving out. Mop up the stragglers. Meet up by the rear exit.
Over here, by the doors.
And this shit is constant throughout the game. I don't know who it was on the Chaos team that decided the AI needs to chatter so frequently, but they deserve to be part of the team that got let go.
Yeah, I mean, that was the same issue in like God of War Ragnarok, is that every time you come to a puzzle, the characters are like, oh my god, this is a puzzle. And then if you don't solve it in the next 5 seconds, they basically tell you how to finish the puzzle step by step. And it's so fucking annoying. I think they patched it out eventually, but it was definitely annoying when it started. What? Why is there a recommend? Wait, what the fuck? Oh. Why is Ben? What? Oh. How do you become a trusted Nexus member? Like, you don't be stupid. That's as simple as it is. Oh, man.
We finally meet up with them at the door, and we wait for one of them to kick the door open.
Let's move!
And as we make our way through the store, the blaze spreads.
I thought I smelled Korean barbecue.
Okay, so I know Connor is supposed to be the over-the-top asshole of the group. That line is just fuck.
By the way, it wouldn't help either because I'm not in the trusted Nexus voice call. I'm just streaming. Someone is listening in on comms. Oh, if you're talking about from like a logistical standpoint, I guess. Yeah. But it's a video game. They don't put that much attention to detail.
Fucking ridiculous. Maybe Rihanna is supposed to make us feel the weight of the situation and how a normal person would feel, but that doesn't work. This is one of the instances where it just feels like the game devs are trying to tell us how to feel.
Oh my god! We're having a fire! Sail!
Out on the roof, we take out the enemies in the lot, then we jump from the roof and we survive another fall. Then we sprint to catch up with the truck and make our escape. And as we're leaving, we can use Goliath to take out the KPA Humvees that are pursuing us.
Man.
We've confirmed news of a daring attack today against the primary KPA supply depot in Montreux. Although the resistance suffered heavy losses, the mission was called a success. The courage and sacrifice of these men and women won't be forgotten, but our enemies have also marked this day. Throughout the occupation zone, the KPA has increased security and pressured civilians to identify resistance members. Citizens have disappeared in alarming numbers with reports of torture and execution. Unquestion the risks of rebellion. They fear reprisal, the boot to the door in the middle of the night. The price of our liberty has always been high. We must stand together now or not at all. This is the voice of freedom.
When we get back to the settlement, we find out that the KPA found the Oasis and they killed everyone. It's kind of tragic seeing these people with bags over their heads and Boone hanging from a kid's swing set. We head through the nearby town and oh shit. See, it's stuff like this that makes this game something special.
Bleak.
No one calls attention to it. It's just set dressing. Makes me feel something that I don't think I've ever experienced in Call of Duty. I feel personally invested in defeating the KPA.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't think Call of Duty does anything that dark, like the nuke maybe, or I mean obviously no Russian, but I'm trying to think how like bleak it gets, and there's nothing that like comes to my mind. I mean, I haven't played any of the campaigns since like Black Ops 2 or Modern Warfare 3, but I can see that. But yeah, but as far as like people like being hung off power lines and stuff, or like they being hung on a kid, there's something about like combining like childhood or like child related stuff, like schools or like a playground, with like horrible atrocities, that is like, it's just like really powerful as far as like grim expression goes. It's an easy way to be like, yeah, this is fucked up, you know. Hold on, I'm responding to something. I wasn't playing with my dick. Just give me a second and respond to something.
As we head out into the street, we get caught in an ambush.
Yeah.
Then Goliath shows up and we protect it from the RPG troops on the rooftops as we head down the street. And then a tank rolls in. So we head down a back path to try to flank it and get a better shot for Goliath to take it out. Goliath is pretty messed up from that action, so Connor says to leave it behind, but Hopper and Rihanna hop on to fix it. Connor shouts that we don't have time to wait, but then Hopper gets it fixed enough and Connor says,
"Good, we're gonna need it. Let's go."
Yeah, this is peak character writing. Then as we move on, oh God, even the water tower has bodies hanging from it.
You know, that, the most, the rocket paused. No, I saw it. Or is that something you do in every single video? I think I saw a comment that mentioned that one time in one of your posts. Using word rhymes with what? Oh. But like the dedication to climb a 100-foot ladder with multiple dead bodies just so you can hang them. Or if you force people to climb all the way up there and then hang them off of the side of it, the dedication to that is the most scary and like disturbing part of that. Because like hanging someone is not necessarily that disturbing in itself, but like making someone climb like a 100-foot ladder to then hang them off at the top, like that is some, you know, sadistic shit. Like that is hardcore. Oh man, yeah, that would be that's incredibly fucking bleak.
Our way to a spot that overlooks the suburbs, and we see the KPA indiscriminately firing at all the civilians and carpet bombing the homes. And it's all payback for last night's raid. We catch up with the rest of the resistance and we fight through the town toward the wall that the KPA has set up around the town. The plan is to strap C4 to Goliath and let it drive up and blow open the wall. Fighting through the White Castle, we make our way to a door that we actually get to kick open for ourselves for once. And when we do, we get a second awkward slow-mo section. And this is just not as cool as the developers thought it would be.
They just copy the Modern Warfare thing so hard.
As Goliath reaches the gate, we fire a rocket at it to blow open the wall, and we make our way out of Montrose. We hop into a Humvee, and we get a very uncomfortable turret section. The Humvee is bobbing all around, so it's tough to aim at anything. And it doesn't help that the graphics engine and the frame rate are struggling like all hell on the Xbox 360 during this section. I'm pretty sure I didn't even kill the enemies that I needed to. I don't know if you can even fail this mission. We make our way out to the countryside in search of the helicopter that's needed to chase down the fuel tankers.
The Resistance has attempted to contact cells beyond the Montrose area. It's hard to determine what's happening outside the wall, but our KPA sources report that several patrols have gone missing, and the ones that survived have nothing but horror stories. After the EMP went off, and the electronic grid that sustained us broke apart, our nation fell into kind of a madness. I remember that first winter. Desperation sweeping the country. People turned on each other, and worse, as food grew scarce. Many beyond the wall have no allegiance to any cause other than their own survival. If we must deal with them, be advised they can be unpredictable, and a fair number outright insane. Let's be careful out there. This is the voice of freedom.
So we meet up with the leader of the survivalists group, but since Boone isn't with us, he calls off the deal and we start killing them. Then Connor hands us a silent sniper and we get a bootleg gillied up. And this mission sucks. As we sneak through, Connor will call out guards for you to shoot, and you have to wait for the signal, even though you know you have to shoot the guy.
I hate on the rail stealth missions are the fucking worst. If you're gonna give me a stealth section, allow me to just go do it Far Cry style, because it's the most boring shit. Even in like Gillied Up, like the original like Modern Warfare one, it's probably interesting the first time you play it, and then it's so useless every other time, sitting there waiting 70 years for them to like drive their tanks over the top of you. It's so fucking dull. It's so fucking annoying. If you're gonna do a stealth section, make it open. Let me stealth until I get caught, and then let me shoot my way out, because like a forced stealth on the rails stealth section, like it's not on rails technically, but like if you have to like sit and wait for the characters to call out who to shoot at what time, it's basically on rails, you know, like you can't deviate from what it's telling you to do. And it's awful. It's horrible level design. It sucks so much.
He's up on a tower and he says to take care of him. You gotta wait for the little indicator to change. I didn't this time, and I failed and had to restart the whole mission. The whole sneaking section takes about 9 minutes, with most of it just waiting. The most interesting about this section is seeing all the horrible things this group does to the captured KPA soldiers. These two guys shoot at the feet of this KPA soldier and toy with him before killing him. These two soldiers are forced to spin this wheel to charge the batteries for the camp. One of the guards says he'll cut the skin from their backs if the batteries aren't charged. These guys are forcing this soldier to dig his own grave before they eventually kill him. Oh, and I encountered a visual bug in this section where the lighting is all blocky. Eventually, we get past the stealth section and run under this bridge when the survivalists throw some KPA soldiers off to hang. We fight through the survivalist camp and we find another KPA is on a spinning throwing knife practice board thing. I ended up just shooting this guy to put him out of his misery. Then we head up into a church tower to provide cover for Connor and Rihanna to steal the helicopter. But first, we have to wait for Connor's signal to take out the patrolling guards one by one.
God, that's so annoying.
Drop him. One more. Take him out. Okay.
As they reach the helicopter, an enemy picks up an RPG and fires it at the church, so we fall again. Then we reach the helicopter and we can't get in because we have to fucking wait for them to get in first.
Hey man, that's how it works. The pilot is the last one to get into the helicopter. Don't you know that?
This message is to all cells in Utah and Nevada. Korean tankers carrying jet fuel are nearing the Lake Tahoe area. Resistance operations are underway to intercept. Our soldiers need any and all resources we can provide to help them defeat the occupation. Use these encoded radio channels to communicate. I will, as always, be here as your conduit. This is the voice of freedom.
This mission is flying the helicopter.
Better than Radio
to chase
Freedom
down the
Fallout.
tankers. You've played this mission in about a dozen different games at this point. At least in this one, you get to control the chopper, so it's not just an on-rail section. You catch up to the tankers. The team hops out to hijack them. Then you destroy a bunch of vehicles that are blocking the path. Then you escort the tankers to a bridge. But Connor's truck stalls out. You're supposed to defend it from enemy attacks while they get it started up and while Hopper plants C4 to blow the bridge behind them. What's really annoying is you're gated by invisible walls everywhere and you can't fly off to get closer to the enemies. But it doesn't matter, it's laughably easy. The enemies never got anywhere near the tankers. So the team blows up the bridge to prevent the KPA from following us, and the tankers make their escape as we head to deliver the fuel to the US military in San Francisco.
Once upon a time in America, our military was a well-oiled, well-funded machine capable of projecting massive power anywhere in the world. The crumbling of our nation, finished with the hammer blows of a cunning enemy, changed all that. But this country's strength has never been solely weighed by its guns and treasure. 250 years ago, farmers and shopkeepers, printers and blacksmiths fought a mighty empire, armed with little more than courage and a dream of freedom. Today, a new generation of civilians will join our armed forces to tear San Francisco from enemy hands. I am the voice of freedom, but you are its terrible, swift sword. This is a war of the people, by the people. Let freedom reign.
Then we join up with the military and we supply them with the fuel for their jets, and we can now begin our assault on the Golden Gate Bridge. And why do we care about the Golden Gate Bridge? Is this really some strategically important objective for the war against the KPA? This bridge that's, you know, a couple of miles inland? Some jets come flying by and blow up some of the choppers.
It's famous, okay? We gotta have a set piece.
Wait, I know those jets. Those models are taken straight out of Frontlines.
Where's Europe in all this? Well, if the whole economy crashed and America entered another Great Depression, I imagine they're doing just the same. If I had to imagine. And they probably just, gave up. Or they're fighting Russia, akin to, modern 2024. I would assume. I don't know if it's ever described in Homefront, but that's just my straight assumption, is that it's either Russia or they're also collapsing. Maybe Ireland finally got their revenge.
See? As we reach the Golden Gate Bridge, we use our grenade launcher attachment to kill the enemies. They used it again.
2 Wilhelm screams? 3?
And again. We get set down and we make our way.
I wonder if that makes me think if the Wilhelm scream is automatically pre-programmed to be an optional thing when an enemy dies via an explosion. Because when they explode, the body was flying and you get that Wilhelm type effect. I wonder if that's how they did it. And it just means that when you just so happen to be killing enemies with the grenade launcher a lot, you hear it way more often than you technically should, because it would be programmed to go off after an explosion of some kind. I'm talking entirely out of my ass. I have no idea how they set up the Wilhelm scream to randomly populate in different enemies, but that's the vibe that I get from it, from just seeing those two, back to back. I don't think they actually went in and programmed these 2 specific enemies back to back to have the Wilhelm scream. A scripted burning guy? Okay. I mean, the first one could be scripted as well, but for the other ones, it makes me think that it's like there's some sort of randomness going on to it that's related to the explosions, that therefore making the grenade launcher more often. I wonder if you replayed that mission, if you would get the same number of Wilhelm screams, and or if you're able to play it with a different weapon. That would be the way to test it, but I have no idea.
Climb up onto the bridge, but first we have to deal with this tank. Then we wait for Connor to kick open another door.
Hoorah!
And we can climb up to the bridge. As we reach the top, we've got a flanking position on the enemy, so we shoot them down. Then we meet up with the convoy to push across the bridge. Some sentry towers block our path, and as we look for a way around them, a chopper shows up and fires a rocket that makes us fall from the bridge and onto the walkways beneath. Rihanna and Connors call out to us, but since we're a silent protagonist, we don't radio back to them. So we fight through the underdeck until we can find a ladder to climb up and out. It brings us right behind the sentry towers, and we take them out so our squad can advance.
Jacobs! That's like the 5th thing you've fallen off of and lived.
Just because you call attention to it doesn't excuse the fact that you use the same falling off of something trope 5 fucking times. The helicopter
but it is
shows back up, so we pick up a javelin and we take it down. Then we open the gate, and our objective is to take down the AA guns that are shredding our air support.
Yeah, so, it's like the shit counter in South Park. If you do it enough times, eventually. Maybe, yeah.
We fight through to the AA guns, and as we take the platform, we have to defend against the waves of enemies that are coming right at us.
My God, it's coming right for us!
I tried to use the sniper, but all the shake from the explosions makes it impossible to aim. Hopper hacks a KPA laptop, and we can use it to call in a UCAV, which is basically just the AC-130 section from Call of Duty. After the enemy convoy is destroyed, we take control of the Humvee. So yeah, we have another awful Humvee scene, and just awesome. Look at how bad
that runs so awful.
The graphics are. Just look at all the cones fading in. It's no wonder people didn't like this game when it came out. We destroy an enemy Humvee in front of the gate, and a KPA Goliath comes out and chases us down. And as it chases after it, we shoot at it a bunch. It shoots rockets at us, and we have some countermeasure flares that we can launch. I tried to find a clip of me using them on screen so you could see what they look like, but apparently they aren't visible on screen when you use them. After a little while, it crashes in front of a fuel tanker, and you shoot the fuel tanker to make it explode and destroy the Goliath. The blast sends the Humvee flying, and we wake up to Connor calling for an airstrike on the column of enemy armor approaching. Warpath says negative because they can't get a read on who is friendly and who's hostile. So Connor picks up a flare and runs at the enemy tanks. And somehow they don't shoot him before he reaches them. Then the jets, which again are from Frontlines, and also they're not controllable in Homefront at all, not even in the multiplayer. They bomb the tanks, destroying them. Connor is killed in the blast, I guess, and the camera pans out and the music swells. Then we get a British news broadcast.
This is Europa News in London. The
there's
Underground
London.
Voice of Freedom Network reports that American resistance fighters have joined U.S. military forces in a major offensive in occupied San Francisco at the Golden Gate Bridge. The coordinated attack may prove to be a turning point in America's guerrilla war against the Korean occupation. Meanwhile, the EU Defense Council has called an
to debate support for our allies. So that's where Europe is. They couldn't come to a fucking conclusion. What's the timeline of this game? Hasn't it already been weeks? They had enough time to set up camps and stuff. So they just chilled out. I mean, yeah, global depression, stuff like that. But come on. You know what? I don't want the support of the British. After all that, no, fuck it. We can do it ourselves. We're a video game protagonist. We could fight the entire army if we had to.
emergency session to plan support for our allies across the Atlantic.
And then it just ends.
Yeah, it's kind of an underwhelming.
It just fucking ends right there. Are you serious? With all that buildup, all that marketing, and all that development of the setting and the story, and that's all you have to show for it? So that was everyone's experience with Homefront's story campaign. I think it's safe to say it did not go over well. It clearly had some divisive themes and presentation. Some people might like the setting, some might hate it. Even if you did really enjoy the setting, it fails to deliver and it ends incredibly abruptly. It sets up this whole plot to fight back against the KPA, but it ends on a cliffhanger, and it's not even clear if we were victorious or what victory really means for us. But the really damning thing is best said by Angry Joe.
The game is all of 4 hours. 4 hours again.
And that's the real problem right there. It's trying to fit so many things into such a small package that it fails to deliver on most of what it sets out to do. The opening scene sets up this crazy world where the KPA is herding Americans like cattle, and it pulls on your heartstrings.
Yeah, you should have had to like go into San Francisco itself, fighting like on the streets and like retaking like at least a sizable portion of the city for $60. Yeah, that's insane. Like I normally don't care about like money to time ratio. Like I understand it as like a rationale type thing. It was like, well, if I'm only going to get 8 hours or 20 hours out of a game, I want to make it worth it. I like understand it. I normally don't buy into it because there's some of the games I really, really love have only been 8 hours, 6 hours, like Hellblade, versus some that I like, Valhalla is 100 hours of complete bullshit. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So it's like, it's not like 100% for me, but like 4 hours of a campaign for $60. You know what? This game, this game was a Call of Duty clone. It was just a clone of Modern Warfare 3, the reboot that came out last year. It was getting way ahead of the game.
By being so over the top and shocking, but it just keeps trying to one up the shock factor without ever giving a solid foundation to build on. Outside of seeing the labor camp,
but still a 4 hour
into and the civilians
even Call of Duty at this time was putting enough in for like a 8 hour, 10 hour campaign. At least they were like putting a what do you call it? Putting a full what we consider to be like a full-length campaign into it.
Neighborhoods. We don't get to know the world very much. From the very moment we get to control Jacobs, we know that we have plot armor and we're the action hero that's going to save the day. But they failed to deliver on that too. We don't even know if we saved the day. We don't even know if we won at the Golden Gate Bridge or what that means.
Yeah, especially from like a narrative angle, there's not a whole lot that happens in the narrative. Like the world is cool, but you can't sell a game exclusively on that. Yeah, if you're expecting Red Dawn and you get like a 4 hour Call of Duty knockoff, that's kind of that sucks.
It means to win at the Golden Gate Bridge, and that means we're left with nothing but disappointment.
Yeah.
So our main design goal for Homefront multiplayer is to create the most intense, exciting, large-scale warfare experience on the consoles.
So with that 4-hour experience out of the way and the bad taste in your mouth, the only thing left to do is go try out the multiplayer. And you'd find a very familiar multiplayer offering with some unique elements thrown into it. Following up on their experience with large-scale vehicle-based multiplayer shooters, Chaos merged their brand of combat with the loadout and level systems that players had become accustomed to. Homefront supported up to 32 players per lobby with dedicated servers on console, something that was rarely seen at the time. Battlefield Bad Company offered it too, but it was on a much smaller scale battlefield, ironically. There was also this game called MAG, Massive Action Game, on the PlayStation 3, and it supported 256 players. In Homefront, players could also take control of aerial and ground-based vehicles, and you could deploy drones, a carryover from Frontlines.
That didn't look awful.
Rather than copying Call of Duty's killstreak system or spawning vehicles at designated places like Frontlines did or Battlefield before it, Homefront had an innovative battle points system. Players earned points for kills, assists, and completing objectives, and you could spend those points during the match to unlock vehicles, drones, ammo restocks, special weapons, and even different airstrikes. This is a very similar system to what's found over in Counter-Strike, but what separates Homefront is the ability to spend your points while you're still alive on the battlefield, rather than needing to wait until your next death. The only exception to this was purchasing vehicles. Chaos Studios thought it would be better balancing if you had to wait until after you died to be able to purchase a vehicle. After missions, you would earn experience and you would level up, and you would unlock new loadouts, guns, attachment options, and special abilities. Each loadout had the traditional main weapon, sidearm, and grenade slots, but also there were these 2 purchase slots for players to choose what they could spend their battle points on while in-game, and there was also a perk system.
That's actually pretty
Here
interesting.
You get 4 ability points that can be allocated across the perks that cost between 1 and 3 ability points. Overall, the reception to the multiplayer was pretty positive, with many praising the game's large-scale warfare, drones, vehicles, and the battle point system. The main mode, ground control, was a hit, giving that sense of being part of a massive ongoing war. But ultimately, sentiment didn't last long, as Homefront would suffer from server stability issues at launch and a rapidly dwindling player base as balance issues persisted.
Waiting forever in in-game lobby. I can't play online. Back to Battlefield.
Unfortunately, neither the initially intriguing single-player campaign nor the ambitious...
If it had an actual campaign, I could see it actually doing something, but like, if the campaign doesn't really have, like, it's a cool setting, but like, you're gonna have more than that. If it had like an actual campaign, an actual story that was really interesting, plot-wise, that probably could have helped this game. Because trying to compete from like a multiplayer standpoint with Call of Duty and Battlefield at the same time, like, that's what killed Titanfall. And Titanfall had a banging campaign and a really inventive and really cool, you know, multiplayer gameplay. Like, Titanfall is fucking fantastic. And it also got killed by Battlefield and Call of Duty. So Homefront, especially without the campaign, didn't even have a chance. Like, it was probably a little bit better off because it was earlier on in like the Call of Duty Battlefield days, and it wasn't, you know, 2016. But damn, you cannot compete with COD and Battlefield on gameplay. Even today, there's like shooters that are like better than Call of Duty, and they don't even have a chance because Call of Duty is just so dominant, just because it is. Like, it literally cannot fail at this point.
The player offering were able to live up to the hype. Player expectations were through the roof, fueled by that massive marketing campaign promising a groundbreaking experience. GameSpot, IGN, and Game Informer all gave Homefront a 7 out of 10. And if you know anything about the major gaming outlets, a 7 means almost nothing. What they were really trying to tell you with that meme score is that Homefront was just okay. It mostly just fell short of what it set out to do. The review score that mattered the most to me at the time came from Angry Joe, who gave it a 6 out of 10, and maybe that's why I never played it when it came out. While initial sales were impressive, with 1 million copies sold in the first week, word of mouth about Homefront wasn't great. Sales very quickly slowed down as people shifted back to playing other games. In total, THQ reported about 2.6 million copies were sold, with about 70% of those on Xbox 360, 25% over on the PlayStation 3, and the remaining 5% on PC. We often will hear how many copies a game sold, and in our minds we'll jump to multiplying that number by $60 or $70 today, damn. But if you know anything about economics, that's just foolish. First, publishers earn their revenue when they sell the game to a retailer. The retailer then turns around and sells the game to a customer
Gears of War.
at full price. For the retailer to make profit, they have to buy the game at a lower cost, usually around $30 or $35. And also, if retailers can't get customers to buy the games, their contracts often allow them to return inventory back to the publisher. So really, Homefront probably sold somewhere around 2.2 million copies at around $30 a pop for THQ. And that means that they only earned a whopping $66 million. And that barely covers the $50 million marketing budget. And once you factor in all of the development costs for a 2-year project, I'm pretty sure that the only profit that they made...
This is so off topic, but no. But this is so off topic. Should we do a forklift tier list? Outside of YouTube and Twitch stuff, this is only relevant because I saw forklifts and I drive forklifts like that every day. But like outside of YouTube and stuff, in the real world, all I do all day is drive forklifts. Do you think we should do a forklift tier list? Do you think we'd enjoy that? Talking about me ranting autistically about forklifts for an hour? I think that would go hard.
If they made any
yes.
product placement.
Guy driving the forklift in that video is very dangerous. I mean, well, hold on, where is that? Whipping around like crazy. Well, let me tell you this. Where is it?
Sellers can't get customers to buy the games. Their contracts...
I don't know how heavy these
often
boxes
allow
are,
them to return inventory back to the publisher. So really, Homefront...
Hey, oh, they're putting them in sideways. You see that pallet? You can see that it's sideways. I fucking hate that shit so much. Because you gotta extend the forks out. You don't have an automatic one. You gotta go off and spread them out manually. It's so fucking annoying. But I don't know how much those boxes weigh. I don't know what is the warehouse. I don't know if this is just random footage or if you know what this is a warehouse of.
Contracts often allow
I
them
can't
to
tell.
return...
Dude, it's massive. Hold on. I think Queso's driving the fucking forklift. But also, like, it's not
back to
that big of a deal. They got a hog plate. But like, I'm all over the place. It's not that dangerous. Probably if there's people around, you know, like technically by OSHA standards and stuff, you probably shouldn't. Full clip, you see other lifts in the area he's crossing past with, hitting those corners quick. Yeah, especially with other forklifts and stuff, picking up while moving. I mean, I do the same thing, but like the difference is, like the warehouse I work in, I am the one and only person in that warehouse. There is nobody else on the warehouse floor, and there's no other forklifts moving. At the same time, I am. If there's people on the floor walking around and other forklifts, like you should probably take it a little bit slow. That is a good point. Because you don't want to even, like, if you're sure that it's fine. Because I can drive a forklift in speeds that you probably should not at incredibly, around incredibly tight corners. And as soon as you introduce those other, like, variables and stuff, you kind of just should stop, even if you can, you know? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Like, I can drive on the highway at like 90 miles an hour and probably be safe every single time because I would consider myself to be, you know, a reasonably good driver. At least I hope so. But like, I'm not going to do that because I don't have the guarantee that everyone else on the road is also equally as good, because for all I know, there's a fucking 80-year-old dude about to make a wicked left turn merge into my lane without hitting his blinker or even looking over his shoulder. So it's like you kind of just drive as if something's going to go wrong, and then you're not going to get into an accident or anything. And that also applies with forklifts. But going fast is not necessarily that bad. It just depends what you're carrying. And based on like those boxes look huge. I would guess it's floral, but I have no idea. I would assume it's floral something, if this is like a big box store. But I have no idea. But yeah, driving fast in a forklift with other people and other forklifts on the floor is not a good idea.
The publisher. So really, Homefront probably sold somewhere around 2.2 million copies at around $30 a pop for THQ. And that means that they only earned a whopping $66 million. And that barely covers the $50 million marketing budget. And once you factor in all of the development costs for a 2-year project, I'm pretty sure that the only profit that they made, if they made any, was from the product placement. Homefront's disappointing performance led to THQ closing Chaos Studios on June 13th of 2011, only 3 months after Homefront's release. And before the corpse was even cold, THQ announced that a sequel was on the way. Support for the Homefront IP was being handed over to THQ's Montreal studio. After throwing everything that they had at Homefront, THQ really was in crisis mode. And it didn't help that at the same time, they were throwing away all of their money on another terrible, terrible investment.
Set your imagination free. Enjoy a wide variety of games. And bring the entire family together with a game of
the fuck is that?
This is the U-Draw tablet. This failed disaster of a product is what ultimately brought down one of the most beloved publishers in the history of gaming. The U-Draw tablet was designed as a way to draw on the screen. It's basically a Mario Paint tablet without the awesome Fly Swatter game. THQ developed this thing and released it in November of 2010 for the Wii, a fitting platform for the target audience. It was a moderate success. Then some moron thought that it should be also made for the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation.
You know, for the Wii, I actually don't hate that. Say people doing Darksiders. Oh yeah, I saw them teasing another game. iHome. Darksiders 3 isn't bad. It's just not great. I wonder if this new game. I wonder if it's gonna be about Strife or something else entirely. But I'm curious. I'm not entirely like pessimistic about it. But yeah, on the Wii, that actually kind of goes hard. I thought it was like its own console thing, but being like an add-on for the Wii, I think makes a lot of sense for like what the Wii is, and like you were talking about, like the audience. For the Xbox, hell no. I don't even know anyone who liked the Kinect. My dad really liked the Kinect, but that's because he wanted it for the what do you call it? Like the voice options, like to be able to like say Xbox turn on, and then he never used it for that, so it was just awful.
PlayStation 3, where it was released on November of 2011, and no one bought this thing. THQ priced it at $70.
I never remember that.
THQ ended up being stuck with 1.4 million unsold units. They incurred a loss of around $100 million on the manufacturing and
hold on. You draw a game tablet. Can we find one? Amazon? Oh, there's an Amazon listing for this? $30! I'm not going to buy it, but I'm going to add it to one of my Amazon lists. Who knows? Maybe that might come in handy. We'll see.
Inventory alone. And as I was doing the research for this section, I just kept finding more relevant facts. And so here you go. THQ actually stands for Toy Headquarters. I didn't know that. And they were initially a toy company that pivoted to video games. THQ was founded by Jack Friedman, who was also the founder of another toy company that turned into a video game publisher. That company went by the name of LJN. Yeah, the same LJN that made the games that are often featured in videos by the angry video game nerd.
You take one look at that logo and you just know there is no gold at the end of that rainbow, because this, my friends, is the unholy stamp of death.
In 1987, 33 years before the U-Draw tablet, LJN released the LJN Video Art. A digital art game console that was a commercial failure.
Damn.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
THQ's game releases for the rest of 2011 and 2012 couldn't offset the massive losses that they had taken from the U-Draw tablet. All
Space
of their
Marine was cool,
games
though.
saw the same fate, performing pretty well, but not selling enough copies to dig themselves out of their hole. In July of 2012, the shareholders would agree to a last-ditch effort and approve a 1-for-10 reverse stock split, cutting the number of available shares to 1/10 the previous amount, all so that they could keep the price per share above $1 and prevent it from being delisted from the stock exchange. But despite these last-ditch efforts, as the year came to an end, THQ's balance sheet showed nearly $250 million in debt to only $204 million in assets. So on March 19th of 2012, THQ filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and eventually the presiding judge would deny their first attempt to sell to a private capital group, instead allowing more time for other companies to bid for their assets and IP. THQ's assets and IPs were divided up and sold off to the highest bidder. Sega purchased Relic Entertainment, who would eventually deliver a terrible Company of Heroes 3. Koch Media bought Volition and the Metro franchise. One of those turned into an amazing series, and the other turned into a flaming pile of who the fuck was this made for? The Darksiders series survived after some convoluted moves between development studios, and on January 23rd of 2013, we learned that THQ Montreal was acquired by Ubisoft, and thankfully, South Park: The Stick of Truth was saved. And last but not least, Homefront, the new IP with tons of
Well, that was
promise
also
that
Obsidian.
failed to live up to expectations, was sold to Crytek for $500,000. And just like that, in what felt like the blink of an eye to gamers everywhere, THQ was gone. The THQ branding and many of their assets were later acquired by Austrian publisher Nordic Games. And in 2016, Nordic Games rebranded themselves as THQ Nordic. And they are sort of continuing on with that legacy of releasing great games across many IPs, like Darksiders 3, Red Faction Guerrilla Remastered Edition, which is just difficult to say aloud.
I will say I love their remastered names, the Darksiders Death Innovative Edition, or Remastered. Like, it's so stupid and it doesn't work at all. But they saw, I mean, you know, it worked out well. Fractured Butthole. Well, he used Stick of Tooth where it is on there, but these stupid names I love so much. The Death Innovative Edition it's so stupid. But if you're gonna do that, I at least have some fun with it, you know, instead of just being Darksiders Remastered. Call it something cool. I or call it something dumb, rather. I think it works really well.
Destroy All Humans and Titan Quest. I really hope that they've learned from the original THQ's mistakes, but looking at their Wikipedia page and the number of acquisitions that they've been making, and with them being owned by the Embracer Group, I'm not holding my breath. Who would have thought that I would go down such a rabbit hole and learn so much about the industry from playing Homefront, a 4-hour flawed Call of Duty clone from 2011. I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did. Well, I enjoyed the beginning of the game. After I was done with it, I was just left with disappointment. Really, just discovering all of this about THQ was just mind-opening for me. There's just so much there that I just wasn't aware of. It's unbelievable to me to think that a publisher that was that big, with games that were seen as hits like SpongeBob, Battle for Bikini Bottom, and all those MX versus ATV releases, how they could just ride straight off the rails so quickly. Homefront is just a great example of how over-ambition can be such a massive pitfall for the games industry. I mean, look at Concord. But it's a story we hear all the time. They take a team that has very little experience, to give them an insurmountable task, and then you bet everything on them needing to succeed.
I like that because it's exactly what happened with Rod Ferguson and Xbox, where like Rod Ferguson is a part of Epic. Then he leaves Epic to join the Coalition, technically Xbox, with Gears of War. And then after Gears 5, like right after Gears 5, he quits that and goes to work for Blizzard on Diablo. And then Diablo gets acquired by Xbox. And then he comes back to the Xbox family. It's the same vibe as that. It's like, He left Ubisoft, and now Ubisoft reacquired him. And it's like, I feel like you bought that entire company just for that one dude. They obviously didn't, but I'm gonna run with that anyways.
And eventually, when it doesn't succeed, you just close the studio. It's a cautionary tale that should be a lesson to the industry, but if there's one thing we know, it's that executives don't learn from their mistakes. In May of 2016, a sequel, Homefront: The Revolution, was released by Dambuster Studios, with Deep Silver publishing the title. Though Crytek had purchased the rights to Homefront from THQ and began the initial development on the game, both Crytek and their parent company, Koch Media, would face financial troubles, leading to the IP changing hands again. The game took the familiar backstory, changed the location to Philadelphia, and infused open world elements similar to the Far Cry series. It too was met with average reviews. I recently picked it up on Steam in the hopes of finally giving it a shot. The changes to the formula seem rather interesting to me. If I do end up playing it, I'll definitely be making a video to cover it too. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button to get recommended more.
Hey, what he just said. If you're watching this and you didn't go and like the video and you didn't subscribe, go and like the video and go subscribe. I'm getting free content off this, guys. You might as well go. And also subscribe to Ice. He deserves it. Thankfully it was saved. Oh yeah. It was a good one. Originally Black Tusk Studios. Well, yeah, but it would be hilarious if he was trying to get away. Yeah, that's what I ran with. And I remember there was a lot of people on the, I don't know, was that old? It might have been the Discord, but I'm pretty sure it was the Gears of War forums who were like, oh yeah, they're doing this just so they can get Rudd Ferguson back. They're like, you're going to work on Gears of War until you die.
Videos like this one. And speaking of, here's a link to another video that you can watch right now.
Unfortunately, I won't because it's midnight and I'm already tired. I don't want to do this while I'm also tired because I feel like it just makes it worse. But it was a good video. I had a lot of fun with that. You guys should be subscribed to this channel here. Cliff said Gears is Rod's baby. Cliff just sucks. I don't really care for him that much. Hold on. I'm going to repaste. I mean, I put this at the top of the stream too, but here's another link to the video. If you have not gone yet, go over there, like the video, subscribe to Ice. It's good stuff. It's so disappointing that it doesn't get nearly as much attention as it should, as he should, but just gotta keep fucking going at it. I mean, I got barely any views my first year that I was like doing it and stuff. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why Andy had such an issue with that, but yeah, I mean, it'll be here. It gets saved on the YouTube as a VOD forever if I don't cut it out into a thing. But that's about it. I think I'm gonna save that just because I'm fucking tired and I need to get up early tomorrow. Staying up for the next video I had queued up wasn't another hour-long video. So if we do that, it took us almost 3 hours to get through Ice's hour-long video. So I don't want to spend another 3 hours staying up late. That's not gonna happen, but I will keep it on the record for, yeah, we've been here 2 hours and 45 minutes. I mean, the first 10 minutes of the stream we were talking about Minecraft and stuff on the server for the Discord, but that very quickly stopped. But yeah, I'm not doing that again. Next weekend there will not be a stream. Maybe if I feel like it. Hey, you did buy a shirt, and all of the proceeds of that shirt went to charity. Go to the link below. You can get your own charity shirt that will go to a food bank, and they're really good shirts and stuff. I mean, I really like my hoodies, but Shepard has a 2-hour-long video. God, no, that's too much. But like, I don't even remember the fuck I was saying. I keep letting chat completely distract me all the way. Next weekend, I'm not planning on streaming. If I do, it will be Sunday instead of Saturday, because we're going to be out of town for Thanksgiving and stuff. So maybe if we come back and I'm feeling it, we might do Sunday. I'm not sure yet. If not, it'll be the weekend after that. We're going to be doing a community game night and also looking at some old Gears 5 reviews and seeing how well they've held up in the last 4 or 5 years. Any plans to make stickers? There are stickers. If you go to the page, there's a sticker for every single collection. Colorful World, No Hesitation, the main Buster McTender stuff. And now I put up a new thing for ladies and animals. How I call everyone, beautiful ladies and animals at the start of every episode on the YouTube channel. Let me just do this. There is now a line specifically for ladies and for animals, merch-wise, that you can go check out. I'll link them in the Discord, because I didn't put that there before. But if you want to, you can go there. Everything is 10% off until December 6th, I believe. So just go get stickers. If that's what you want to do, go get stickers. They're not, they're just, it's there and it all gets donated to charity. That's the whole point of it, is to be like, hey, here are my 12,000 something YouTube subscribers. Go buy this so I can donate the money to charity right off. Or, whatever. But, this will be it for the stream tonight. I am already fucking losing my mind. It is hot in here. I'm tired. I haven't gotten enough sleep in the last 2 things. Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Hope you guys do have a good Thanksgiving. It will have already passed by the time the next stream comes along. So hope you guys do have a good Thanksgiving. Spend the time with family and eating a lot of food and just having a good time. And if you don't have family, there's a whole playlist of Buster McTender videos for you to get caught up on. See you next time, guys. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Remember to stay cool, have fun, be awesome, and I'm out.